In a city already breaking apart, a monster the size of a building is stepping over the streets like they are already his, and everyone else can only run or freeze. Tenma throws up his hand and screams for everyone to get out. Tenma sees the attack drop toward him and yells for Father, the authority figure who has been protecting him. Father cuts in front of him, shields the kid with everything he has, and takes the blast head on. The force throws Tenma back, but Father stays planted and forces the attack away from his son. Even while his body gives out, Father only tells Tenma one thing: run. After that nightmare, the story snaps to the awakening ceremony, where humans are trying to make more fighters before disaster beasts wipe them out. The Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief watches the damage like it barely counts as a Tuesday morning problem. A nearby Awakener explains why everyone still listens to the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief, despite that dead calm face. He was the first awakened, and humans learned about monuments and disaster beasts because of him. So the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief calls the students forward and tells them to attempt awakening, then devote themselves to fighting disaster beasts. Tenma tries to move ahead, but a pink-haired student pulls him back and tells him to get in line properly. The ceremony starts moving candidate by candidate. The officials call the next student, and the monument answers with a violent awakening that lifts the student off the ground. The brown-haired student shoots above the city in a rush of awakening, thrilled and confused as he asks what happened to him. The change hits so hard that his excitement cracks into anguish. Tenma's turn twists the whole ceremony out of shape. The monument reacts to the emotions buried in him, and something massive starts surfacing from the awakening space. The light around Tenma grows until the whole city can see it. Witnesses compare it to Oishi's awakening and admit this one is far beyond that. Then the observers name the impossible part. This phenomenon only happens when Order Breaker appears. Tenma stands inside the storm of power, and all he can do is ask himself if this is really awakening. Tenma closes his eyes inside the awakening surge and checks the one number that should decide his whole life. Every stat still sits at 0. Then the system gives him the loophole. Tenma realizes Overmimesis can copy skills, and Nirvana can turn those stolen skills into stats. So even without leveling up, this guy can still get stronger. The surge floods the whole street, and the students can barely look at him. One of them blurts that Tenma is impossible, while an observer admits this boy may rank among the greatest new awakeners in history. Tenma steadies his hand against his chest as the word lands in his head: strongest. Around him, the school crowd starts shouting that their school has someone unreal standing right in front of them. That praise hits the wrong student. Oishi, the student everyone compared Tenma against earlier, snaps at the so-called loser and rushes him with the skill he just awakened. Oishi tries to end it fast and declares he will erase Tenma with his new power. He calls out Silver Serpent, ready to make the whole crowd watch Tenma fold. Tenma does not panic. He analyzes the attack as it comes in, and the system climbs from 57% to 69%, while his defense eats the worst of Oishi's strike. Saya, Tenma's friend who was watching the fight, loses sight of him after the flash and asks where he went. The answer is worse for Oishi, because Tenma is still inside the fight and his analysis keeps rising. Tenma turns the copied force through his own body, and the students who were mocking him suddenly lower their voices. One of them warns the others that they are in trouble if Tenma hears them. Smart timing, honestly. The system confirms the theft. Tenma gains C-rank Thunderbreaker. He understands the strange analysis space now because it opens every time his reading completes. Back in the school courtyard fight, Tenma faces Oishi with the stolen skill already working for him. The watching students realize his power is now even brighter than Oishi's and start asking how that is possible. Then the stat window answers for him. Tenma's attack, agility, defense, and magic all jump by 10, pushing his total from 800 to 840. The weather breaks without warning, and clear skies turn into heavy rain. The school cancels the assembly on the spot and orders everyone to evacuate the grounds like the drills taught them. As the staff try not to panic the students, they notice Tenma staying calmer than the adults. Then the school building erupts, and Tenma moves straight through the wreckage instead of running from it. Outside the damaged school now, Awakeners spot disaster beasts coming and argue over whether to flee. One warns they will die if they do not run, so Tenma cuts through the panic and tells them to trust him. Oishi hates the choice, but he still follows Tenma's lead and jumps with the others. He grumbles that Tenma better not get them killed, and now the whole group is betting its survival on the level 0 kid. In the rain outside the ruined school, Tenma locks onto the disaster beast and finally says what has been sitting in his chest for 10 years. This skeleton soldier is the one who killed his parents, and its level 8 defense gift makes it tougher than the numbers first suggest. Tenma thinks about testing the skill he just gained, then steps into the fight instead of letting the others scatter. The skeleton soldier tries to burn him down, but Tenma answers with one thought: he will not let anyone else die. The first exchange ends with Tenma still standing over the beast, face lowered and anger all over him. The system starts reading Bonefire, so our boy stops fighting blind and lets Order Breaker break the skill open. Piece by piece, as the analysis races forward, Tenma's body pulls the enemy's power into itself. When the scan completes, he finishes the skeleton soldier and takes the skill for himself. The officials watching from the school grounds go quiet because Tenma's power is changing too fast to explain cleanly. One of them can only wonder what skill he will steal this time, while the level 0 kid keeps moving like the label never touched him. Near the evacuees, Saya sees Tenma survive and finally breathes again. She says he is alive and insists he can pull it off, but his full recovery rattles her because she just watched him use lightning, healing, and now something else entirely. The beast refuses to stay down and rises in a stronger form, trying to crush Tenma before Order Breaker finishes eating through its tricks. Tenma meets it head on, and the fight turns into a race between the beast's last rampage and his stolen power catching up. Tenma waits for the opening, then drives in with the final strike and cuts the beast down for good. The storm around the school keeps raging, but the killer of his parents is no longer moving. With that enemy gone, the next wave starts forming near the school, so Tenma keeps scanning instead of celebrating. A spiked creature appears, lightning tears across the building, and an armored form stands in the chaos as the battlefield widens again. From the observation side, the officials admit only awakened fighters can even track Tenma's movements now. Then Jin, the godlike existence people compare themselves against, enters the talk as they describe his divine skills, solid armor for defense, and weapons shaped for any attack. On the ruined school grounds, Tenma hears someone call his name, but he looks past the noise because Saya never comes running over. An observer says Saya watched him with tears in her eyes, then ran to touch the monument because she was scared of falling behind him. Jin steps in and checks Tenma's name while the monument waits behind them. The observer backs out fast to look for Saya, leaving Tenma face to face with the godlike existence everyone keeps measuring him against. A masked figure reaches toward Tenma and calls him special, marking him as the focus instead of just another fighter. Purple aura and shadowy figures crowd the moment. Then the memory jumps to a rooftop confrontation where a shirtless man demands to know the reason why. The memory breaks open and Tenma collapses under the sight of his mother dying in front of him. Her final push is cruel and kind at the same time. He has to walk the rest of the path himself. Tenma screams for his mother and refuses the truth, but the disaster beasts keep coming anyway. When two larger beasts rise, he accepts the burden in one breath and sets his hatred on every last one of their kind. Back in the present conversation, Tenma explains the scar that never fully healed. Since his mother's death, his left eye stopped crying, while his right eye cries on its own. When Salvation League comes up, he asks about it. And Jin explains it as the organization built to fight disaster beasts with better science and cleaner methods. Tenma says the League's pay and resources are not what he cares about. Jin warns him that comparing himself to Jin only leads to despair, but still tells him to trust the strength he has already earned. Tenma takes that warning and turns it into a target, vowing, "I'll surpass Taewa Jin." Taewa Jin is the promising rookie from a past tournament, but Jin reacts like something bigger has started moving, because the sunrise he has been waiting for has finally appeared. Later, out in the desert, Tenma spots a strange structure and asks what it is. The answer is bad news. Monuments are passages linking this world to the world of disaster beasts, so killing the beasts while leaving the monuments intact only lets the threat keep returning. The building ahead exists to isolate monuments that were never destroyed. Awakened fighters sweep out the disaster beasts that crawl through, keeping the barrier under control and turning the whole place into a training facility for people strong enough to survive it. At the challenge facility, the staff lays out the wall Tenma has to climb. Jin cleared this place as a rookie in 3 minutes and 14 seconds. If Tenma wants to surpass Jin, he gets 3 minutes. Around the reception area, the crowd clocks Tenma as the rumored level 0 rookie and starts guessing why he is here. When someone asks who is challenging, Tenma answers with 2 words, "Just me." At the counter, Tenma shuts down the wrong idea fast. He tells them he has no interest in flirting with anyone here and came only to challenge the stage. The onlookers think our boy is acting too bold for a level 0 rookie, but his confidence makes one of them hesitate. With the 3-minute promise in front of him, Tenma steps in and starts the run. Inside the solo gauntlet, Tenma faces tree-like disaster beasts and builds the weapon he needs on the spot. He swings an axe into them and mutters that an axe is best for trees, while the creatures tear forward anyway. Outside the stage, a worried staffer asks Father, the authority figure, why he sent Tenma into this rookie stage when others exist. Father remembers Tenma's eyes and says Jin feels like a god who saves people, while Tenma looks like the complete opposite, a demon driven by hatred. Back inside the gauntlet, a demonic tree creature bares its teeth, and an even larger red-eyed shape rises before Tenma. The threat has escalated from one monster to something towering, so his next test is simply surviving what stands in front of him. As the defeated beast breaks apart, Tenma's order breaker starts analyzing it. The system begins at 5%, and Tenma keeps his focus on the skill hiding inside the kill. The gauntlet is not done with him yet, because the next plant beast regenerates after Tenma cuts away half its head. He realizes he has to crush it fast, so Tenma pushes into the vines before the monster can keep rebuilding itself. Tenma knows the plant beast will keep rebuilding unless he crushes it fast, so he stops trying to win clean and starts carving for volume. The scan crawls from 17% to 21%, while our boy pours more magic into every strike. The creature opens up around him, but Tenma refuses to back out. He decides to mince it before it can regenerate again, and the plant beast finally breaks apart under the pressure. The win costs him immediately. Glowing fragments around Tenma start draining his magic, while loose shards whip through the air around him. His magic depletion hits 60%, so every second here leaves him with less power to keep fighting. The masked enemy fully manifests in a lightning aura and shapes that energy into sharp crystalline projectiles. Tenma is caught in the barrage, which means the enemy is no longer just rebuilding. It is attacking him directly. Tenma stares that down and thinks if he dies here, then that is all he ever was. The kid forces out another strike anyway, but the enemy holds and Tenma snaps, "Damn." Even Even while Tenma is being squeezed dry, Order Breaker keeps working in the background. The analysis hits 100%, finds the self-regeneration trait, and hands him Lotus Burst LV2 with boosted stats, debuff removal, and full injury recovery. Tenma activates Lotus Burst on the spot. White Cyan energy gathers in his hands, and he turns the new power into a massive fire burst, forcing the fight onto his attack instead of just enduring it. Tenma lets Lotus Burst finish the job, and the stage finally stops squeezing him dry. He flexes his hand and thinks the skill is not bad at all. Tenma counts the cost right away. 1/3 of his magic for enough force to wipe weak disaster beasts much faster. Our boy is already turning a near-death skill into a farming route. Outside the stage, the challenge clock calls out Tenma's run at 2 minutes and 9 seconds. The watchers still trust him against level 10 disaster beasts, but 17 kills in 3 minutes sounds insane even to them. Back outside the advanced stage area, that pressure from Tenma's fight reaches the people watching. One of them stiffens and wonders what Tenma is even thinking with that terrifying aura rolling off him. The talk turns to North District 4, a district where advanced stages are controlled by Kinoshita Reiji, the governor everyone whispers about. Every awakener who enters his stages goes missing, and the rumor says Kinoshita Reiji kills them himself. Kinoshita Reiji sits back with a drink and studies the small object in his lap. A red mark on it pulls the memory straight back to the earlier stage incident. Back in that earlier memory, Saya recognizes the moment at once. Tenma studies the strange green stone and starts connecting it to what he saw after the disaster beast died. Saya explains it plainly. When a disaster beast or an awakener dies, karma leaks from the body like invisible experience points. A karma stone stores that karma, and absorbing it is one way to level up. But Saya catches the problem before anyone celebrates. Karma stones are not supposed to appear naturally, so when Tenma absorbs it and levels up, she suspects his gift pulled it into the stage. Saya keeps chasing the logic, because Tenma beat 2 disaster beasts and still did not level normally. She and Tenma realize the school attack was different. The karma from that beast spread to the awakened people who were present, including them. The teacher answers an unseen command with a firm yes, so someone higher up is now directing what happens next. At the Flaming Rock execution ground, 2 suited students demand entry because they arrived first. When they hear a richer entrant gets priority, one of them fumes that money lets him do whatever he wants. The block student tries to force the issue, but the blue-haired entrant answers with raw power and drops him into the ground. The first complaint ends fast. Then the blonde student takes the next hit head-on and says it does not even hurt. That is a very bad sentence to hear from the guy still standing. The blonde student counters, and the blue-haired entrant buckles from the hit. The witnesses panic as a level 7 and level 8 pair gets wiped out before they can do anything, and now everyone knows the gap is ugly. The crowd finally reads the blue-haired entrant's power, and one student blurts out that he is level 12. Takeru, one of Kinoshita Reiji's gatekeepers, grabs the beaten student by the neck and tells him he should worry about helping his friends instead. Someone warns Takeru not to go too far, because Tenma is watching and a teacher report could follow. The group laughs anyway, but then the muscular masked figure violently throws Takeru himself, so the threat turns back on him. Tenma steps in with the nearby awakener and finds Takeru injured badly enough to need treatment. The awakener starts healing him, then leaves the rest of the mess to Tenma. Kinoshita Reiji's gatekeeper blocks Tenma's path and warns him that nobody enters without Kinoshita Reiji's permission. Tenma checks the enemy's information, but the system hides too much at first. The hidden data opens just enough to show metallization, a C-rank defense skill that pushes the gatekeeper's defense way above his other stats. Kinoshita Reiji glares from behind him, already angry that a level 0 is still standing here. Tenma attacks first and forces the gatekeeper to guard instead of brag. 2 level 8 awakeners watching from the side panic, because Tenma is supposed to be level 0, and they still can barely follow him. The gatekeeper survives the hit by hardening his arm with metallization. Tenma reads the block instantly and thinks he needs more speed, so he pushes Thunderbreaker into his movement. Tenma's overmimesis catches the metallization skill and starts analyzing it from the fight itself. Once he sees the armored spots, our boy changes targets and goes straight for exposed flesh. The gatekeeper jolts when Tenma brings out lightning and loses the clean rhythm he had a second ago. Tenma keeps pressing him while the analysis climbs from a crawl to more than halfway done. Tenma laughs once because the skill finally gives him what he needs. The gatekeeper's whole body turns metal, and he admits Tenma's pressure helped him pull off full body metallization for the first time. Now the gatekeeper gets cocky again and explains that metallization boosts every hardened part, while his own gift boosts defense even more when he stays still. He thanks Tenma for the upgrade, then says he will kill him quickly instead of cutting him in half. Tenma refuses to waste time draining the gatekeeper's magic and prepares Clear Orb to finish the fight at once. The gatekeeper stares at the lotus-shaped attack and asks how a level 0 has a skill like this, while the system lists Clear Orb as a piercing shot that ignores enemy defenses. Here at Reiji's gate, Tenma is still the system's broken level 0, but Clear Orb gives him the one thing he keeps hunting for, a clean way to turn stronger enemies into stolen power. He prepares it on the spot, all stats rising as the skill settles into his body. The gatekeeper sees one tiny orb coming and laughs it off, calling it Tenma's trump card. Then Clear Orb hits and erupts in front of everyone watching, proving the attack is not something his metal defense can simply ignore. Clear Orb punches through anyway, and the gatekeeper's armor plan falls apart with him inside it. He goes down screaming, wrapped in bandages and pain instead of victory. That mouth had a short career. Tenma stands over the injured gatekeeper and says he only spared the arm because the target is human. If this were a disaster beast, our boy says he would have aimed for the neck. The other gatekeepers watch Tenma refuse refuse to budge, and their anger turns cautious fast. They still demand an answer from him, but after seeing the damage, they admit he is strong and decide they do not meet his standards anyway. After clearing Reiji's gatekeepers, Tenma moves into the Stone Tribe stage, where the problem is no longer pride, but magic stamina. Saya warns him that every disaster beast here has defense near Oga's technique, and Oga is the powerful fighter they use as the benchmark for tough defense. Saya adds that the Stone Tribe has no intelligence, but they attack in groups, so wasting magic can get Tenma trapped. The first stone statue crawls out of the rocks, and Tenma reads the advanced stage stats as much higher than before. A stone statue rushes him, so Tenma tests Clear Orb instead of trading hits. The attack lands, the statue breaks, and the system confirms the level 9 beast is defeated. Tenma checks the skill change right away and sees Clear Orb's flight speed has jumped by 100%. The kid moves with it through the stage, using the faster shot to keep ahead of the Stone Tribe instead of letting them surround him. But Clear Orb still burns 50 magic each time, and Tenma counts only 2 shots left. 2 stone statues are already charging, and the boss still has not shown itself, leaving 3 enemies between him and the clear. Tenma counts the last 2 Stone Tribe beasts rushing him and chooses the cheap answer, 1 Clear Orb for both. He drives the shot through the pair at once, saving his final magic for the boss that still has not shown itself. The cost hits right after. Tenma drops to the ground, breathing hard, and thinks the empty feeling before his magic runs out is brutal. When he checks Clear Orb again, the speed boost gives him 1 clean option. He can now chase enemies before they spread out. Tenma tests the faster orb by slamming it into the ground, expecting control of the fight. Instead, the impact draws up a giant stone creature from below, meaning his trial is not over and the real problem has just surfaced. Tenma aims up and tries to finish it with a small orb anyway. The hit goes through, but our boy reads the damage instantly. The orb is too small, and piercing alone will not break that body. The giant stone man pushes back hard, forcing Tenma into close range before he can reset the fight. He activates Black Wall, and the counterblast finally makes the giant stagger. Tenma admits this big guy is tougher than he expected. Then the system catches the trick. B-rank gigantification. Overmimesis starts copying it at 1%, and Tenma immediately relaxes because the boss is not naturally huge. It is borrowing size from a skill. Outside the stage now, the watching officials freeze when Tenma breaks through the giant stone man's defense. One of them blurts that someone defeated Oga and forced their way into the stage. Then another panics because no one below level 30 should be able to crack that defense. The officials have a worse problem than shock, with level 30 awakeners tied up handling the surge of descending monuments. The only people who should be here are challengers, and Tenma is still the level 0 mystery standing inside the stage. Inside the Stone Tribe stage, the masked watcher doubles down and says he is repeating himself. Tenma stops playing careful and pushes his copied power to 100%. Tenma Scan finishes the giant stone man's trick, B-rank gigantification, but Order Breaker does not hand him that skill, so our boy checks the thing that changed instead. Clear Orb jumps to level 2, and Tenma reads the new numbers fast. The passive boost has doubled from 100% to 200, with stat gains, healing, and debuff removal added on top. With the boss still in front of him, Tenma dumps every bit of magic he has into 1 Clear Orb. The stage stops being a fight and turns into cleanup. Tenma lands in the dusty aftermath and immediately wonders if he overdid it. The giant stone man is down, and Clear Orb's flight speed rises by 200% too. Tenma thinks bigger now, because Lotus Burst passive can keep scaling with this. If it keeps growing, this guy can start wiping disaster beasts from thousands of meters away. Outside the stage, the officials stare at the clear notice and cannot make the numbers fit. Tenma clears too fast, but the system still lists him as level 0, so one of them wonders if the notification bugged out. After the clear, Tenma notices a butterfly near him and asks what it is. Showa, a Shikigami user, introduces it as Tamacho, her own Shikigami. Tenma admits this is his first time seeing one, and Showa says that should be common knowledge. As she continues, powerful lightning energy erupts around Tenma, turning the lesson into something he has to survive, not just understand. When Tenma says he wants to clear the same stage again, Showa shuts that down. Stages have cooldowns, and this one locks him out for at least 2 days. So Tenma asks for a stage packed with disaster beasts instead. Showa points him to Locust Wasteland, where the beasts are weaker but come in huge numbers. Tenma decides on the spot that he is going. His companions warn that without area attacks he will suffer, but Tenma tells them he will be fine. At Locust Wasteland, the next problem hits before the fight even starts. Tenma finds out nobody else entered, and he blurts out that there is not a single person with him. Meanwhile, away from Locust Wasteland, 2 officials confirm the impossible report. Tenma entered the stage alone. The lead official snaps and orders him captured alive, promising to make him suffer once they drag him out. Before that order can move cleanly, Death, the entity watching over the situation, crushes the captive official into silence. When the official chokes out a sound, the authority figure tells Death to ease up, because the man still has something to say. Death keeps the captive pinned, just loose enough to talk. The authority figure explains that Death can sense nearby entities, so hiding from it is already off the table. Inside Locust Wasteland, Tenma checks his phone and finds the outside world trying to reach him. There is not even a reception desk here, and the awakeners nearby treat that as normal for a stage this dangerous. Deeper in the stage, Tenma faces the real threat, parasitic insects that eat their way into a body. Tenma refuses to end up as bug food and steals himself for a solo clear. Deeper in the stage, Tenma's gamble pays off when the boss goes down, proving he can push through a dungeon this dangerous without the usual backup. When he and the others emerge into the light, the solo run stops sounding like a rumor. Back inside the swarm fight, fight, Tenma sees the locusts packed together and decides the crowd helps him. The more they bunch up, the less work Lotus Burst has to do, so our boy waits for them to enter range. Tenma fires Lotus Burst and wipes out the first mass of locusts at once. The stage goes quiet for a breath, with charred remains scattered across the ground. Tenma counts the result calmly. 110 enemies down, a 10% increase gained, and Lotus Burst now reaches a 10.5 meter diameter. He checks his magic next and figures he can still fire about 10 more times if he keeps the output controlled. The kid pushes the math further and sees the real prize. Repeated casts could raise his skill range by a massive amount. The cooldowns slow the farming down, but the stage itself is feeding his order breaker perfectly. Then Tenma notices the clear notice never arrives. He catches the problem at once. One enemy is still alive, and that survivor may be tied to the boss skill called Mother's Will. Tenma admits he dropped his guard because he thought the stage had no boss. Lotus Burst can still expand again, but the system only confirms another evil locust kill and shows his current boost at plus 220%. Tenma keeps sweeping the small locusts, but the boss still refuses to appear. He has already killed 10 more weak ones, so now the stage feels less like a single boss fight and more like something spawning behind the swarm. Tenma keeps cutting through the newborn evil locust, but the stage keeps feeding him more targets. His status shows the real limit now. Analysis is only at 27%, Lotus Burst has 9 uses left, and his magic sits at 232 out of 280. Tenma decides the swarm can come as many times as it wants. He pours another Lotus Burst into the cluster and wipes out the next wave before it can bury him. The system confirms another evil locust falls to Lotus Burst, and every skill range rises again by 1%. But the boss still stays hidden, so Tenma stops chasing kills and asks why the small ones keep coming. Tenma reads the fight for what it is: endless spawning. Pulling out and waiting for analysis to finish would work, but he rejects that retreat and forces himself back into the swarm. Hanging on at the edge, Tenma finally catches the pattern. The new disaster beasts are all level 1, tiny like they just hatched. So Mother's Will is not a shield skill. It is the boss making children without stopping. Tenma is almost out of magic, but the analysis bar hits the end before the swarm can finish him. The system completes Mother's Will and gives him magic detection level 1. With magic detection active, Tenma stops wasting shots on the children and searches for the source. The hidden boss comes into focus and Tenma fixes on it at once. Tenma reaches past the spawn locusts and sends his next strike straight for the boss. Even using its children as shields does nothing now, because he has already found the real body. The attack lands and Tenma's new armored form holds the field while the boss loses its last escape. Tenma calls it cleanly checkmate. With the queen dead inside the stage, the swarm breaks down at once. Tenma checks the hall and finds every skill range boosted hard, with Lotus Burst and Clear Orb reaching way farther than before. 17 minutes, so much for a quick clear. Tenma thinks Choa will act distant once he gets back, so he steps out ready to apologize first. Back outside the stage, he calls out that he is safe and sorry for worrying her. Choa scans him again instead of relaxing. The scan resets, catches the solo clear, and she pins him as the guy Kinoshita Reiji, the disputed target, has been searching for. That answer pulls the trap shut. A Shikigami attacks, Tenma blocks it, and the scan labels it as death. A B-rank Shikigami in hound form. The hooded Shikigami user holds Choa hostage and leans on death to keep Tenma pinned. Tenma snaps at the sight of Choa in danger, then fights death off long enough to start analyzing the enemy's setup. Tenma tries to remove death first, aiming for the Shikigami user's weak point. His read is simple: without the Shikigami, the user has no real defense. The hooded user catches the plan and wonders if Tenma is too new to know the rule. Death respawns almost right away through respawn desire, and the user orders Tenma to get careless and become its prey. Tenma keeps magic detection active because the last stage already taught him not to trust what is in front of him. The analysis climbs past 90%, and our boy hides the sign of his next skill, so the hooded user does not back off early. The hooded user realizes Tenma has more power, more speed and detection, good enough to ruin a surprise attack, so he grabs the only lever left and threatens Choa's life if Tenma resists. Tenma's analysis hits 100%, and he finds he can finish it without showing the blue lotus. He still has enough power from the stage recovery to fight near full strength, and the new skill gives him one clean answer: steal the enemy's Shikigami. Tenma does not beg for Choa back. He looks at the Shikigami the hooded user keeps treating like a weapon and says, "I'll take your dog." Then our boy drives the stolen skill attack straight at the Shikigami and rushes the hooded user before he can think. The hooded user panics and yanks Choa into the threat again, warning Tenma that one more move gets her neck broken. Choa, already hurt, tells Tenma not to worry about her, but Tenma snaps back with one order: don't touch her. The hooded user smirks and blames Tenma for Choa's pain, saying she only suffers because Tenma refused to obey. Tenma demands to know why he is being targeted, because he has no grudge with this guy. The answer means the ambush is only a setup, because the hooded user says Tenma is about to meet someone else after this. Tenma thinks of Kinoshita Reiji again and decides he needs to face him directly. The hooded user cuts the talk short and orders Death to bite off Tenma's legs, then screams for both legs when fear starts running his mouth for him. Death lunges in, but Tenma channels his power and protects Choa before the bite can decide the fight. The hooded user even praises Death, only to realize the attack has not broken Tenma or taken away the person he is guarding. Holding Choa close, Tenma lets the hooded user see exactly how badly he chose his target. target. Tenma warns him he will regret putting hands on them, and the hooded user starts breaking down in front of that pressure. His confidence does not even make it to the next breath. The hooded user tries to save himself by offering a team-up, even promising to lure out Kinoshita Reiji. Tenma calmly accepts, and the hooded user grabs the first opening he sees. Bad read. The hooded user strikes, but Death answers Tenma now. The Shikigami turns on its former master, and the hooded user cries at Death to remember who fed it. Death does not care. Outside near the training grounds, Tenma turns away from the wrecked fight and calls out the presence that has been tailing him since he left the stage. He asks how long the Watcher plans to hide, forcing that quiet observer out of cover. The hidden Watcher laughs and admits Tenma caught her. Tenma recognizes her as the person from earlier, but she refuses the confrontation. She says she has no time for him and leaves before he can press her. Indoors, a blonde visitor approaches Tenma because he needs help, and he is ready to pay with money or karma stones. Tenma does not name a price first. He explains that payment depends on need, like water being worth more than treasure in a desert. Tenma reads the problem fast. Showa is hurt, the crafter came on an injured foot, and the nearest hospital is too far to reach in time. Tenma says the hard part out loud: Showa will die. The crafter snaps back that he has healing items and can save her, and Tenma finally looks at him like this deal may be real. While Rikuru moves to help Showa, Tenma kneels nearby and catches the detail that matters to him. Rikuru is carrying a karma tool. For Tenma, a weapon like that is not just gear. Crafters make karma tools from monument parts and disaster beast bodies, and they are built to fight disaster beasts directly. The crafter's explanation opens the door wider. Rare karma tools can boost stats, epic ones add special effects, and unique karma tools are the dream every crafter chases. Then the name behind the crafter's world lands. The Crafter King of the Northern Continent, a master of the trade the crafter wants to prove himself to. Rikuru shows why karma tools are so useful in a fight. A projectile weapon like his crossbow can turn normal ammunition into karma tool shots, so even if he has no arrows ready, the weapon handles it. Tenma watches the ammo vanish and files that feature away fast. Rikuru then admits he is heading into North District 4, the district Kinoshita Reiji controls, where awakeners have been disappearing. He expects Tenma to tell him to quit, but Tenma gives the opposite answer. If Kinoshita Reiji is involved, they are already chasing the same target. Rikuru pushes the offer further and asks Tenma to team up for the Salvation League National Tournament preliminaries in 2 days. The Salvation League fights disaster beasts with more organized methods, and its tournament gives Rikuru a real opening. He says Tenma is strong enough that together they can pass. The crafter's reason comes from home. He fights disaster beasts with karma tools his father made, but when he begged for one himself, his father told him it was too early. So the crafter clenches onto the preliminaries as his proof and says he has to win this year. Tenma accepts the team up, but only after Choa gets to a hospital first. The crafter agrees, plants himself beside Tenma, and declares them a duo from now on. Tenma came looking for Kinoshita Reiji's trail and walks out with a tournament partner too. Elsewhere, Seiya, Tenma's worried friend, feels the distance catching up to her. She admits she never thought they would be apart this long, then drives her water and ice attack forward anyway. With the preliminaries starting the day after tomorrow, another student warns the mentor that this is no time to mess around. Back with Saya, Tenma's worried friend. Her status card ties her current progress to Rikuru. Rikuru talks about North District 4, Kinoshita Reiji's district where awakeners keep vanishing, and admits he wants to see that prosperous town with his own eyes soon. Elsewhere that night, an official opens a case while two men quietly trade information. The masked figure takes the small item inside, making it clear this is a secret handoff, then praises Zenoshid as the only helper he can rely on. The reward hits at once, and the system announces a level up. Then Death turns to Tenma and offers to erase the problem for him, but Tenma shuts that down and asks to handle the opponent himself. Jin, the godlike existence who keeps pulling people back from the edge, approves the answer, then catches the others reading the situation wrong. He tells Seiya and Tenma they have it backwards, and Shoa's father thanks Tenma for saving his daughter before asking to visit after the preliminaries. Jin tells Tenma to rest easy about the preliminaries, because the real issue is not just winning. When a beast is isolated, its self-destructive impulses kick in, so Jin asks whether having someone to protect can weaken that urge. Jin admits that is why he placed Seiya beside Tenma. He trusts Tenma to pull that darkness into the light, and Tenma now walks into the preliminaries with more than a rank on the line. 2 days later, at the North District Salvation League National Tournament preliminary venue, the crowd is bigger than Jin expects. Watching the numbers grow, he mutters that the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief has added way too many uncertain pieces. At the entrance to the internal area, the rules come down fast. Everyone races for time, their bracelet records their rank the moment they enter, and only the top 50 move on to stage 2. Seiya spots trouble first and calls Tenma's attention over. Kinoshita Reiji is already barking orders, telling his people to block anyone running ahead of him, and the nearby competitors freeze at how open his cheating is. Then a dark-clad figure drops into Tenma's path, and Tenma asks who he is. Up above, the officials talk about how many young people now want into the Salvation League, the organization built to fight disaster beasts more efficiently. Jin is not impressed by a big crowd alone. He says numbers without quality are useless, then brags that in his time there were plenty of participants over level 15, until Tenma dryly catches catches the word plenty. The system undercuts Jin right away. Only 2 people in that year actually reached that level. One of them is Haitin Akira, a river-crossing war veteran known for the strongest physique, and his current level still backs up the old reputation. Jin grumbles that the preliminaries get boring without rookies like Taewa Jin, the promising fighter from that past tournament. Then an interviewer corners the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief about the Northern Continent student who defeated a level 8 skeleton right after awakening and became his pupil, and Tenma's name starts circling before the race even begins. The Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief confirms the rumor in front of the crowd. The Northern Continent really does have a student who beat a level 8 skeleton right after awakening. The question jumps straight to the racers, and everyone starts hunting for the pupil the Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief recognized next. The scan rules out one candidate right away, then lands on Saya. She is level 11 with a grade 1 support gift and water elementalist skills, but the watchers decide she is not the mystery pupil either. Then the scan catches Tenma. A level 0 entrant in a national preliminary should be easy to ignore, so the crowd treats him like the yearly joke, walking into the wrong test. That gives Charles a tournament participant with 0 patience for weak-looking rivals. His opening, his group spots Tenma, marks him as the easy obstacle, and Charles orders the others to take him out first. The race turns into a fight before Tenma can even settle in. Charles expected some scary first opponent, so when he sees level 0, he sneers at Tenma to move. Tenma does move, just not backward. Charles laughs first, Tenma laughs back, and our boy smashes through the opening exchange hard enough to leave Charles staring through a bruised face. Hanaya, a level 7 tournament participant, gets dropped so fast, his allies scramble for excuses. One of them insists Tenma only caught him off guard, but the panic in their voices gets there first. A fire user tries to fix the problem with a B-rank flamethrower and pours everything into it. Tenma takes the blast head on, and even he thinks the cast is too fast for his karma tool. The bystanders call it overkill for a level 0, but Tenma hears the fire user blame him and answers coldly. If the man wants someone to resent, Tenma says he should resent himself for acting cocky as level 0. Then Tenma feels something strange inside the flames. The fire user screams for Tenma to get away, but the system has already counted the hit. Black Wall blocks the B-rank fire skill. Tenma's defense rises by 31, and this guy immediately starts checking whether the passive works twice on the same skill. The attackers stare because Tenma is still standing unscathed, and they mistake Black Wall for some ice-type skill. Tenma challenges the fire user to throw the same technique again, and promises he will not block it this time. The fire user thinks Tenma is mocking him, so he grabs onto pride instead of caution. He demands Tenma keep his word, because a man does not back down after saying it. Tenma keeps his word and lets the fire user try again. The fire user pours everything into his strongest B-rank skill, Flamethrower, desperate to erase the level 0 who just embarrassed him. Tenma watches the stronger blast come in and reads it calmly. It has more power than before, but it is still fire, so he raises his hand and meets it with Black Wall. The fire user's magic empties in one shot, and his face drops as his ultimate technique dies in front of him. He can only choke out that it is impossible. Tenma gets the answer he wanted. When the same target uses the same skill again, Black Wall's passive does not trigger twice, and our boy finally understands why the broken shards behaved that way earlier. The fire user still thinks Tenma is beating him with some ice skill, so he doubles down on the wrong read. Tenma activates Black Wall fully, and the counter blasts across the field before the fire user can recover. The fire user realizes too late that Tenma's level 0 magic pool makes his draining attack almost useless to drain. Tenma checks the result himself and confirms the passive only counts once, even after taking repeated fireballs. Now Tenma stops testing and starts pressing. He tells the speed-type fighter that his own specialty is power, then asks if the strike has any real strength behind it before smashing through him. Even mid-fight, Tenma keeps doing the math. His defense rose by 31 instead of 34, so he pins the boost to the value before enhancements and logs the B-rank fire block as another clean game. 2 lightning elementalists try to turn the fight around, and Tenma sees a free upgrade for Thunderbreaker. The moment they panic and run, he chases them down before they can leave the battlefield. One lightning user bets that Tenma cannot repeat the fire trick on a different element. Tenma absorbs both G-rank lightning skills instead, and Thunderbreaker boosts his agility twice. The defeated attackers stare at Tenma and finally stop treating him like a normal level 0. A hooded awakener watches the bodies drop and wonders what kind of ability Tenma is using. Then the hooded awakener makes his move. He grabs Tenma, lifts him into the air, says the fight was the good part, and unleashes his own lightning burst before Tenma can settle the field. The armored attacker hammers Tenma down and snaps that this is what happens when people run ahead of him. A witness recognizes him as Kanoshita Reiji, the North District 4 administrator's son, and another one mutters that his arrogance says plenty about his upbringing. Kinoshita Reiji sees the other examinees clearing the path and grins because his own stamina is still almost full. But when Tenma gets back up as level 0, Reiji's face tightens, so he orders his soldiers to take Tenma out first. Tenma shields his blonde ally and tells him to keep his head down. Reiji's attack detonates across the field, and the watching examinees finally understand this fight is is dragging everyone into it. Tenma meets the masked man in the air, but the masked man refuses to let the exchange end there. He says he'll correct things himself, then declares that until he settles this with Tenma, nobody gets to leave. Inside the internal area, the blocked examinees start reading the arrival rankings instead of charging ahead blind. Akagami Shion, the second place internal area ranker, complains about sitting in third for the moment, while someone near him worries more about being hungry. Then the ranking board drops the real problem. Hanyu Kana, the first place ranker, is already level 16. The list also marks Iberia at 6th place, so Tenma's fight is no longer happening away from the top arrivals. The masked man calls Tenma by name and repeats that he will not let this end unsettled. Heten Akira hears the danger building and tells his ally to help Tenma if our boy gets cornered. Tenma and the masked man crash back into the fight, and the field turns into a pylon. The surrounding attackers call it a 100-on-1 beating. Then one of them screams, "Kill that guy." Tenma gets knocked through the air as another attacker rushes in, desperate to claim his head before anyone else can. Tenma catches the threat too late and snaps his focus back to the incoming strike. The kid answers with his blade and cuts back into the pressure instead of running. One attacker sees the opening he wanted and prepares to end the whole mess fast. The attacker unleashes Lotus Burst and Tenma gets swallowed by the blast before he can fully reset the fight. The battlefield goes quiet around the impact. Tenma takes the full blast and comes out damaged, but still on his feet. Seiya sees the hit land and stares at him, shaken, because the power around Tenma looks nothing like a normal level 0 skill. The fighters around the ruined area stop laughing when they see the damage. One witness blurts out that a level 0 caused the explosion, and the aftermath leaves buildings wrecked, fires spreading, and survivors counting bodies. When the casualty count hits over 100, the burgundy-haired Awakener panics and snaps at Tenma for chasing him. Tenma cuts straight through the excuse and says the Awakener targeted him first and seriously hurt his friend. Cornered, the Awakener leans on family money and brags that Karma Stones let him reach levels commoners could never touch. Then he declares Tenma beneath him and fires off B-rank lightning cannon to finish the argument. Tenma dodges it so fast, the Awakener's confidence breaks mid-thought. The system starts analyzing at 1%, and Tenma closes in before the guy can make that big speech useful. The Awakener realizes Tenma is still moving like a monster at level 0, and fear finally gets louder than pride. He screams for 40 to help him, but Tenma starts building his counter before that rescue can arrive. Tenma calls to Haiten, and Haiten answers right away. With Haiten covering him, Tenma holds the line while the battlefield around him gets cut apart again. Jin, the godlike rescuer from before, pushes the wounded side to keep going instead of folding, but the Awakener can barely move now, and even his own power starts failing him. Out of options, the Awakener tries status next. He throws out that his father runs North District 4 and his brother belongs to the Salvation League, then warns Tenma not to touch him. Tenma does not bite on the threat. He pauses the analysis at 99%, saving a one-time condition reset for the second stage, and the system confirms the pause. Saya calls out to Tenma as the pressure finally drops, and Tenma answers her before he falls back towards safety. She rushes him inside, fussing that he will catch a cold if he stays out there. Inside, Tenma and Saya finally get a quiet second after being apart. The others crowd around him in relief, and one of them breaks down because Tenma made it back alive. Once everyone settles, the group asks Tenma to explain what happened. Then the talk turns awkward, because even after all of that, Tenma is still registered as level 0. The masked man presses the question everyone is circling around. If Tenma's level will not rise, how is he getting stronger? Tenma has survived the pylon, but now he has to explain the one part of his power he has kept hidden. Saya cuts in before Tenma has to answer the masked questioner. She tells Tenma he does not have to deal with him, so the secret behind his level 0 strength stays locked up for now. Jin pulls everyone back to the test and asks if they are ready. He points out Haiten Akira, the river-crossing war veteran known for his brutal physique, and the masked legend standing beside him. Jin announces the second stage, and this one is individual combat. Disaster beasts now carry kill points, from beginner class up through hard class, and those points will carry into the main tournament. The masked legend immediately aims for nightmare class beasts. Haiten Akira gets fired up by the challenge, while another participant sneers that Tenma must be scared now that he has to fight alone. Saya asks if anything is wrong, but Jin answers the thought hanging over the group. A level 0 has no business touching nightmare class, and Jin says Tenma would struggle even against beginner class if the level system is right. Tenma focuses on the only part that matters to him and asks if there is no upper limit. Jin brushes that off, saying nightmare class already needs at least level 10, so Tenma walks into the stage with everyone expecting him to break first. Inside the trial grounds, the fights start fast. One observer wants to watch Hanyu Kana, and a combatant clears an enemy in 1 second for 100 points, fast enough that Tenma hears people say it should take several minutes. Then Tenma steps up to a normal class salamander worth 500 points. The watchers argue over whether he can handle a beast 5 levels above him, but one of them notices Hanyu Kana is the only fighter keeping pace with Tenma. The salamander swallows Tenma in flames, and Tenma lets it happen. He activates Black Wall, stands through the attack, and takes the 500 points after 5 seconds. The observers stare because Tenma comes out untouched. They realize he could have killed the salamander right away, so now they are asking why he chose to eat the attack first. Tenma already has his next test picked. The Aleki Rhino hits with both physical force and lightning through its horn, so Tenma faces it calmly and decides that horn is perfect for testing his defense. The Aleki Rhino drives its charged horn into Tenma and sends him flying back. Tenma lands, steadies himself, and calmly concludes that disaster beasts within 10 levels still cannot damage him. With the test done, Tenma stops playing defense. His focus snaps sharp, he activates Thunderbreaker, and the Aleki Rhino becomes the next chunk of power our boy is taking home. Still inside the second stage trial grounds, Tenma turns his level 0 label into a farming route, and the Aleki Rhino gives him another win to stack. Thunderbreaker keeps tearing through the beast until the Rhino is gone, and the system clocks it at 7 seconds for 1000 points. Tenma does not stop to enjoy it, because the next disaster beast is already a worse problem. The trial sends in an Inferno Giant, a level 15 Nightmare class beast worth 5000 points, built with claws fast enough to shred enemies and armor hard enough to block normal attacks. Our boy steps under it anyway, tests the pressure, and gets blasted back before the fight can settle. On the outside, the Northern Continent commander watches with Saya as the pace jumps again. Saya is trying to clear her last two beasts and reach normal class first, but Hanyu Kana slows down to recover magic before moving on. Then Saya realizes the one moving faster than her is Tenma, and Hanyu Kana has already hit full clear progress too. Back in Tenma's fight, the Inferno Giant does not get the long battle it was built for. Tenma pins it down with his black sphere and kills the level 15 beast in one shot, leaving the watchers stuck on the same question: how is that thing punching through armor? Father, the authority who assigned this stage, orders the trial raised to Phase 2 to see how far Tenma can go. Phase 2 sends two level 15 Inferno Giants at once, worth 10,000 points, but Tenma reads the change as more bodies instead of a real new threat. He deletes the first one, turns on the second, and takes another clear orb as the system boosts his flight speed again. The skill climbs to 11 meters per second, with the total flight speed increase now sitting at 1100%. The observers start to panic over the repeat clear orb drops, but Father keeps his eyes on the flaw instead. He warns that the black sphere hits hard, but if it starts from mid-range, a fast enough Inferno Giant can answer it before it lands. Tenma activates Clear Orb again, and this time the beast meets the attack head-on. The Inferno Giant finally slips past Tenma's Clear Orb, and Saya blurts that it dodged. Father reads the exchange cold. The Clear Orb hits hard, but from mid-range, its flight speed gives the giant time to move. If Tenma cannot make it faster, the observers think our boy's run stops here. Tenma's attack still detonates against the Inferno Giant, but the observers now see the problem. From mid-range, it can be dodged. Tenma pushes through the haze and regroups, meaning the exchange has exposed a weakness he must solve instead of ending the monster outright. The observer admits Thunderbreaker has brutal striking power, but the Inferno Giant refuses to fold from one hit. It staggers, digs in, and comes back snarling with its counter ready. Tenma answers the counter by flooding his body with purple electricity and using speed instead of strength. He dodges the giant's attack, slips into range, and fires back, proving the monster's raw power means less if it cannot catch him. Saya turns to Father and asks how he knew Tenma would dodge the attack. Father explains that once electricity runs through Tenma's body, his speed spikes hard enough that the Inferno Giant cannot land a clean hit. Tenma cannot afford even one pause, so he braces through the giant's pressure and forces his way back in. The kid targets the head at close range, activates Clear Orb again, and makes the giant pay before it can reset. The observers realize Tenma has pushed all the way to Phase 4 in one stretch. Height and Akira only reached Phase 3 even with the strongest physique, so now everyone watches to see how far Tenma can drag this test. Tenma refuses to let the second Inferno Giant reset the distance. He drives Thunderbreaker through his legs, slips behind it, and finishes the giant before it can swing back. The system marks the kill, and Clear Orb gets another speed boost. Tenma barely gets a breath before the third enemy steps in, and our boy is already looking for the fastest way to end it. Tenma chooses Lotus Burst, the same attack the observers remember wiping out a crowd in the first stage. He burns the third enemy down in 13 seconds and takes another 15,000 points. Tenma's magic is running thin, so he leans on magic detection to refill it while he keeps fighting. The system detects 4 more enemies, restores a chunk of his magic, and Phase 4 opens with the test still trying to bury him. Tenma meets the next Nightmare class creature head-on, but this phase immediately proves heavier than the last. He launches a counterattack, and the creature's overwhelming force drives him back, showing he cannot overpower it cleanly. The new beast fights differently, so Tenma cannot just rush in and repeat the same answer. Iron chains snap out, and Tenma realizes the trap a second too late. The chains smash Tenma back and pin him where he cannot use his strength. Tenma grits through it and admits he cannot put power into this position. So the fight turns into one ugly question: can he move at all? Tenma forces his body past the lock and tears himself free. The strain hits hard, his frame looks wrecked under the power, but the beast's armor breaks first. Father sees Tenma standing in the debris and orders Height and Akira to help him right now. Then Father stops himself because Tenma's exhaustion looks painfully familiar, and he murmurs that this is his limit too. Height and Akira moves first, ready to jump in before Tenma gets crushed for good. Father stops him, eyes locked on Tenma, and says Tenma hasn't given up yet. Tenma hangs trapped in midair as the armored enemy drops in to finish him, and even the observer reads it as a desperate spot. Worse, the enemy still has a trump card, so Tenma is not just cornered, he is facing another hidden danger. Tenma activates Overmimesis, the skill he stole during the fight with Kanashita Reiji, the disputed target. The system resumes the old analysis on Lightning Cannon Purple, and the scan jumps to 99% right as the attack reaches him. Tenma has been saving this exact answer for a corner like this, so the analysis hits 100% and hands him Thunderbreaker LV2. The trapped kid finally counters from the worst possible position. The watching students recognize Tenma's usual Blue Lotus and panic over why he looks so pleased while half dead. Tenma already knows the skill does more than hit hard, so he commits to the final strike. Thunderbreaker LV2 kicks in and wipes Tenma clean in seconds. His injury's close, every debuff drops, his stats jump across the board, and the observers can only stare at healing stronger than a dedicated healer. Now fully restored, Tenma tears through the Inferno Giant and takes the clear orb, pushing its flight speed far past the last limit. Phase 4 clears in 31 seconds for 20,000 points. Tenma keeps going, and the next two Nightmare class phases fall even faster than the staff can process. Phase 5 clears, then Phase 6 clears in 1 minute and 34 seconds. And this guy walks out of the portal, making people wonder who the real monster is. When the next phase should start, no more Inferno Giants appear. The staff realize Tenma has defeated every Inferno Giant they prepared, and the red-hot Karma Stone confirms the trial has run out of enemies. Father finally calls out to him and tells Tenma it's over. The stage ends with Tenma standing alone, holding the clear result of a trial that was supposed to break him. The staff finally admit Tenma has defeated every Inferno Giant they prepared, and our boy is still standing in the trial ground, chained up and barely holding himself together. Then a blue Karma Stone appears where it absolutely should not, and the officials panic because that thing carries at least 1,000 experience. Tenma reaches for it anyway. The moment Tenma leaves the trial ground, the officials go quiet. The board gives the result clean. Second stage clear, 106,600 points, 3 minutes 55 seconds, rank 1. The trial ran out of enemies before Tenma ran out of answers. Back outside the trial now, an older instructor argues that self-training is not enough, and that talent needs a real teacher with resources. The Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief steps in and names Tenma as his disciple. Tenma just reacts while the others confirm it, so the gossip has nowhere left to hide. The Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief praises Tenma for clearing the stage and offers Choa's healing if he is hurt. Then he adds that his other disciple also wiped out every disaster beast prepared for the second stage, so Tenma should sit back and watch while everyone else keeps fighting. The Northern Continent Commander-in-Chief notices Rikuru, the close companion, and Seiya only reached hard class, even though he expected more from them. Tenma catches the odd part right away. If their runs failed, they should be out already, unless one of them is badly hurt or caught in some special condition. Inside another second stage run, a participant calls out to Michan as a huge armored beast pushes the fight into its complete form. The creature dominates the field and smaller threats gather around it, so Choa and the others realize the Shikigami can transform. Choa admits even her Tamacho cannot do that. Watching that, Tenma rethinks the Black Dog Shikigami he stole from Charles, the conflict player, and decides he has been wasting a useful card. Then he brings out Dragon Gear, the strongest epic karma tool his father made for him. Father really packed a deadline into a gift. Dragon Gear gives Tenma 100 attack and 100 agility right away, then adds 20 more to both every minute he wears it. The catch is nasty. After 15 minutes, the penalty hits. So Tenma sets the rule for himself fast, finish everything within 15 minutes, with his current boost already at attack plus 120 and agility plus 120. Meanwhile, other competitors hear the Nightmare class clear announcement and correctly guess it was Tenma. One of them brags that the two of them are double E. Then the second stage ends and the main event stakes land. The top two get special rewards. Another competitor hears that and claims the prize for himself. The score jumps past 60,000 and the challengers start doing the math out loud. Then the board shows Tenma sitting more than 65,000 points ahead of second place, while another battered competitor admits he still did enough for double E. One finalist hears the special reward is only for the top two and calmly claims it for himself with one tiny word: me. With the last runs finished, the 21st Salvation League National Tournament preliminaries officially close. But the celebration gets cut short when North Rank 1 warns that the North Continent is in danger. Tenma steps into the system space right after that, and his total stats finally pass 1500, while the system still calls him level 0. The system hands Tenma 50 stat points for leveling up, so this guy immediately looks for a way to push his attack higher. He is not trying to look balanced. He wants results. After the preliminaries, Tenma gets pulled back into something warmer than rankings. At Rikuru's home, the table fills with Tenma's favorites, and our boy gets hit with a kind of feast that makes training camp feel far away. Seiya catches someone eating from the wrong seat and calls it out, but the meal just keeps moving. Rikuru doubles down with an empty bowl, and the cook boasts that his food already put everyone back on their feet. Then Father turns the table quiet by asking the saviors what they fear most. One man says aging scares him, because losing stamina and even taste sounds worse than any battlefield to him. Seiya answers next, and she says she grew up in a medical family inside hospitals. Even a cold or fever still shakes her, so when she sneezes, Tenma notices the fear under the joke. The group turns the question on Tenma, expecting him to brush it off. Instead, he admits that after his parents died, he did not know how to keep living, and the room catches his name like they just touched a bruise. In Tenma's memory, Seiya and Rikuru find him crying alone and rush straight to him. Seiya checks if he is sick, offers the hospital, then pushes food as the fastest fix she knows. Back at the table, Tenma says the warmth Seiya and Rikuru gave him pulled him out of that dark place. Then he remembers meeting Father, Choa, and Iberia, the 6th place too, and his family gets a little bigger around the same table. For once, Tenma is not chasing points, enemies, or the next trial. trial. He looks at this peaceful moment and wishes it could last forever. Tenma sits with that impossible quiet and admits it feels nothing like the life he is used to. Father answers the fear without dressing it up and tells Tenma he will never leave his side, not even one step. Then Father gives him the line he wants Tenma to carry as a savior. A death without regrets is the goal. Tenma takes it straight to heart and promises he will engrave it there. The next morning, Saya is already asking Rikuru for another home-cooked meal. Rikuru agrees, but only if Saya does not drag Tenma into trouble. So the peaceful table somehow turns into tournament plans. When Tenma and Rikuru talk about meeting at the national tournament, someone notices how close they have gotten. Tenma brushes it forward and says they should head back, because he still wants to ask Saya something during the main tournament. That soft morning snaps when Showa rushes in with top-secret information from the South Continent. She tells Tenma the intel is vital, and the room drops the easy mood fast. Showa says Commander Elder Balgar from the South Continent has sent a prophecy. Within 3 days, a large disaster beast assault will hit the North Continent. Tenma asks if the prophecy is reliable, and Showa says Elder Balgar is the most renowned prophet across the 5 continents. Showa pushes evacuation to the Central Continent because Tenma is the target and direct combat is not supposed to be his specialty. Tenma hears that, but his mind catches on the split forces, and he wonders if Sensei is really dividing everyone just for his old man. Elsewhere, Father moves first and orders Heitan Akira to come, trusting North District's low population density to keep civilians out of the fight. Showa reports the arrangements are done and Heitan should arrive soon, then tells Father he can rest. Father keeps guards with him and settles on a blunt plan. Wipe out the small fry, then smoke out the boss. Someone praises Father for seeing through the enemy's setup, and Father waits in the dark for the calamity to show itself. At the same time, the enemy side is already thinking about an artifact that can raise attack, defense, mana, and agility. As mana gathers around Tenma, the plan points toward one result: a perfect awakener who has everything. An attack comes from above, and the city starts breaking apart. The danger has fully arrived now, because the destruction is already hitting the city instead of staying as a distant threat. In North District 2 that night, Tenma travels through the rain and asks how much farther they have to go. The answer is another 100 kilometers, and with disaster beasts already moving, every delay puts Iberia's father farther out of reach. Then someone calls for Tenma to look up. A stone monument drops into the city area, and the report lands immediately. The attack has started. In North District 2, the warning lands too late. Civilians are still trying to evacuate, and the Awakeners realize a disaster beast attack inside the city will leave people trapped in the streets. The evacuation line breaks as people shout that the falling stone matches Elder Vargar's prophecy. A barrier starts forming around the area, so the Awakeners change plans and rush to stop the disaster beast before the citizens are sealed in with it. The team takes position as a level 21 flame golem steps into the city. They count their odds fast: 3 level 15 Awakeners and 1 level 16. Difficult but still winnable if they hold formation. One Awakener throws up Rock Shield and orders the others not to break ranks. For a second, the group believes their defense can buy enough time for the city to clear. Then the flame golem revives in the middle of the fight, and the Awakeners panic as its flames surge back harder. Their formation breaks, and the blast throws them away before they can finish it off. A defensive Awakener steps in and tells Iberia to evacuate the citizens while he holds the flame golem back. The people watching see the huge attack blocked and immediately mistake the rescuers for saviors. The blonde Awakener snaps back that nobody asked for help and claims he was going to beat it anyway, but the others are already staring at Tenma's ice-covered defense, wondering how a normal Awakener can stand in front of that beast. Tenma focuses on the crowd first, because his strongest shot is too risky here. He remembers Izumi warning him that the black sphere hits hard, but it takes time to chant, and if it misses once, a strong beast will guard against it. So Tenma throws that plan away and chooses the simple answer. With civilians too close for the penetrating true sphere, our boy decides to crush the flame golem by force. Tenma drives straight into the flame golem and batters it before it can recover. The level 21 beast gets forced down under barehanded pressure, and the city gets its opening to keep evacuating. Tenma ends the flame golem before it can recover, driving the final hits in fast enough that the beast never gets its balance back. The level 21 threat drops, and the city finally gets room to breathe. The witnesses stare at the wrecked flame golem, and one of them blurts that it could not even fight back. By the time they look for Tenma, our boy is already gone with a blonde companion. The crowd tries to explain it away, with one Awakener claiming Tenma only won because the flame golem was already weakened, but another level 15 Awakener admits he could not even track Tenma's speed, and the talk shifts fast. That level 0 moves like someone near level 30. Away from the city, Tenma checks his stats and hates the same gap staring back at him. His mana can recover when enemies are detected, but he thinks the real problem is attack power. Father hears that and cuts straight through it. Speed means nothing without power. When he says he has a way to raise Tenma's attack, the kid immediately pictures himself wearing an artifact strong enough to fix that problem. Father decides to act for Tenma right now, grabs him, and launches off before Tenma can even argue properly. Tenma shouts that he is not ready, then loses the rest of the sentence to the drop. Father really has no gentle setting. Later that night, at 11:05 p.m. on the first day of the prophecy, Father brings them somewhere quieter. The companion explains the town is too noisy for Father's crafting, so Father starts magic detection and warns everyone to stay close. At the house, the hooded companion asks if this is really Tenma's place, then senses the magic getting stronger. The answer arrives by itself. A humanoid artifact steps out, and Tenma's system names it an epic iron golem. The iron golem moves first, forcing the hooded companion to dodge dodge as it strikes tears into the ground. Tenma takes the hit instead and gets thrown hard enough to realize the worst part. Even this artifact has higher attack power than him. Tenma asks how to stop it, and the hooded companion points him to the karmic stone in the iron golem's chest. Once Tenma knows that power source is the target, he steadies himself and goes back to what he still has: speed. Right now, Tenma is still the broken level 0 on paper, but every fight is feeding his hidden class. So when the iron golem guards its karmic stone, our boy stops trying to overpower it and rushes the one part that keeps it moving. The golem trial ends ugly enough that Tenma snaps at father and swears he is never touching those awful artifacts again. Then Aiden, a master tied to a prophecy about a massive calamity in the north, checks Tenma and asks if he is Izumi's second student. Aiden looks at Tenma's status and gets the weirdest answer possible: human, level 0 fixed, job order breaker. When he asks if Tenma is using a karma artifact to fake those numbers, Tenma denies it straight away. Aiden knows Tenma's master usually counts every gain and loss, so guarding Aiden for no reward already feels off. Then he points out the real problem: Tenma's stats reset every time he levels up, a nightmare setup for any normal awakened. But Aiden still calls Tenma special because Tenma keeps getting stronger anyway. He cannot read the trick behind it, so he hands Tenma a karmic answer instead. From now on, every single attack can be buffed 10 times. Tenma's new tool kicks in as Iron Fist of Destruction, even with a broken critical crystal showing a dead 0 critical rate. The kid reads the condition and grimaces. Beating enemies with higher attack power is rough, so he saves the counter plan for after the raid. Aiden admits his own attack power was so low that Tenma's help pulled him through. Father tells everyone to rest because Beast should not reach a remote place like this, but he closes his eyes, senses danger, and blasts up a defense before the hit lands. The attack hits before anyone understands it. The group reels in confusion as a green barrier snaps up around them, making it clear something dangerous has reached their resting place, and the defense is already being tested. Tenma meets the first wave head-on and starts cutting them down, but numbers are not the part that bothers him. He knows Lotus Explosion could clear enemies at this level instantly, and that makes the choice harder. Josuke, Tenma's ally in these beast fights, might survive that blast, but Aiden and Iberia are hiding in the shed right behind Tenma, so Tenma holds back the wide attack and forces his power through a tighter strike instead. After the rush, Tenma admits he is better built for solo fights than teamwork. Then the next beast steps in with pressure far heavier than the last ones, and Tenma braces because this wave is not done with him yet. The new beast finally names itself through the system: Two-Horned Guardian Beast 815, a level 24 disaster beast from the Horn Demon tribe. Tenma has already held back once to protect the shed, and now the enemy standing in front of him hits harder than the whole first rush. Inside the demonic realm, the invasion is already moving. The demon leaders send the first wave of lower-class slaves into the human realm, then argue over which of the 8 demon kings should lead the main force. Their commander says the last descent left an eye behind in the human realm, and that eye found an important person. A demon king-class fighter might destroy that eye by mistake, so he leaves the search to a demon general instead. For the main invasion, he chooses Enshokuma, one of the 8 demon kings. Enshokuma has not eaten a living human in a long time, and the commander sounds very pleased about that little detail. Back at the human settlement, Iberia screams from the shed because the double-horned guardian has broken in. Tenma reads the level 24 enemy and reaches for the power he has been saving because its attack power is higher than his. Tenma activates Clear Orb and fires Piercing Sphere, betting that killing a stronger enemy will raise his critical rate. The number jumps exactly like he predicted, so our boy hands the room to Josuke and moves to stop the bigger problem outside. Josuke takes over with a calm order and tells Tenma to leave it to him, but the double-horned guardian immediately breaks away, and a blonde-haired person is left wounded or caught, showing the danger is already slipping past his control. Pinned down and out of options, Josuke reaches for a desperate move, then cries for Tenma to help him. Instead of breaking, he unleashes the power inside him, and the beast that had him cornered suddenly gets forced back. The guardian still refuses to drop, snapping forward as Josuke keeps it busy. Aiden steps in late after clearing the lookouts, strikes the creature down, and leaves the rest to Tenma. Tenma answers by locking the beast down with Black Ice Wall before it can reach the shed again. The barrier holds, the monster stalls, and this guy finally has room to finish the raid cleanly. Aiden reports that he cannot sense magic fluctuations outside anymore. He figures Josuke wiped out every last disaster beast out there, so the fight turns toward the green barrier, still spawning enemies from within. Josuke's cleanup outside the shed lands hard on the group, and one fighter blurts out that Josuke really handled all of that alone. Aiden cuts the celebration short because the green barrier is still active, and every minute it stays up gives the disaster beasts more time to grow stronger. Josuke plants himself as the last line and says if anything slips past him, the others can handle the rest. But Aiden watches Tenma instead, because Tenma is staring at the barrier with no fear at all. He wants in. Aiden warns Tenma that a green barrier means level 250 or higher disaster beasts inside. Tenma answers with one flat line: "I'm sure." Then our boy pushes his power into the barrier, and the whole group feels the pressure jump. When the younger fighter tries to get fired up too, Aiden shuts him down. He tells him to stop pretending they are all moving on Tenma's level, because a team covers weak spots, and dragging Tenma down here could get him killed. Aiden finally says what everyone keeps avoiding: Tenma is special. He asks if they have ever seen Tenma's eyes when a disaster beast appears, because those eyes are not scared, they are waiting for prey. 5 disaster beasts crawl out of the barrier, and Tenma clocks them at once. The kid does not retreat or call for help. He fires Lotus Blast straight through the group and wipes out all 5 before they reach the others. The kill feeds Tenma again, raising the range of all his skills and nudging his critical rate up, but he knows the last double-horned guardian already ate 80% of his mana, so this guy digs in and refuses to let even one beast reach Iberia's group. From farther back, the blast leaves the witnesses stunned. One of them starts counting what they just saw, while another wonders how a level 0 can trigger an attack that big, and whether Tenma's broken leveling is tied to his gift instead. At the green barrier, Tenma checks the inside for himself and immediately feels the difference. Mana detection activates, but the barrier blocks his read, so he cannot count the enemies waiting inside. That only makes the deal simpler for him. Kill them all, take the experience. Tenma summons Death, the Shikigami he can trust to hold back until ordered. Death manifests beside him, ready to tear in, but Tenma tells it not to touch a single beast yet. Every disaster beast in there is his prey. Outside the barrier now, a first-class savior steps forward and vows to prove he can stand with a special-class fighter. The green sphere still seals the battlefield ahead of him, so his confidence is about to meet the same wall Tenma just walked into. Inside the barrier, Tenma finds the same land waiting on the other side, but the air feels wrong. He activates mana detection, reads 5 enemy units inside, and realizes the barrier has cut this space off from the outside, so he orders Death to stay put and eat any disaster beasts that try to run. Tenma fires up Thunderbreaker and moves first. The fleeing disaster beasts try to scatter, but our boy boxes them in, breaks through their defense, and crushes the whole group before they can regroup. Tenma finishes them with Piercing Sphere, and the system pays him with a broken critical crystal. His critical rate climbs to 3%, so every fight now has one ugly little lottery ticket sitting inside it. The kid does the math fast, 3 critical hits in 100 attacks. Then he spots the Stele up close and aims for the simple answer. Break the Stele, drop the barrier. Mana flows back into Tenma as one last enemy unit pings behind the Stele. He still thinks one hit is enough, so he launches straight at the core before the Guardian can move. The hidden Guardian answers first and hurls Tenma across the ground. Tenma lands hard, then clocks the trap at once. If he had been slower, that ambush would have run him through. Tenma stares at the thing rising behind the Stele and his read changes. This disaster beast is not just defending the barrier, it is watching him back. The armored creature reveals its full form, blue armor glowing around a skull-like face. It says it has long wanted to ask Tenma's kind something, and offers to hear one final wish before the fight turns fatal. In Tenma's mind, the old fire comes back. The burning city, the weapon in his hand, and the blast tearing through everything all drag him back to the hatred he never buried. Tenma forces his way through the Guardian's field and lands the hit he came for. For 1 second, our boy checks the damage and thinks, did I get him? The answer is ugly. The Stele Guardian's magic swells instead of breaking, and Tenma reads the faster antennae at once. It is speeding up, but he still has the edge in movement. Tenma keeps cutting in close, but his strikes barely bite. The Guardian hears that weakness and demands his real level, because a level 0 should not be moving this fast. The Guardian presses him with its body-made weapons and promises one clean hit will end him. Tenma parries through it and stays in range, because backing off gives the Guardian the whole field. So the kid stops trying for a perfect finish and starts drowning the Guardian in repeated attacks. Then he catches the problem. Those antennae are not a skill, so Overmimesis cannot copy or shut them down. Tenma loses count around the 18th strike, and his body starts paying the bill. His magic drops to 97 out of 330. His stamina is getting eaten up too, so he dumps the plan into one thing: offense. Tenma banks everything on broken critical crystal, a strange item with only a 3% crit rate but a brutal reward. A critical hit multiplies his attack by 10. This guy only needs one lucky break, so he throws himself straight at the Guardian. The Horn Demon appears above the structure and fires razor-sharp cyan blades. One strike catches the dark-haired figure and drives him backward, turning the exchange into a clean counter instead of a clean hit. Tenma snaps into the counter and calls it the moment he was waiting for. His full power strike lands clean, and the Guardian gets driven back hard for the first time in the fight. The disaster beast panics the second Tenma's power spikes, asking why a human suddenly hits this hard. Tenma feels the crit rush flood through him and thinks the power is stronger than expected. Satisfaction, focus, ecstasy, all of it hits at once. Blood pours from Tenma's stomach, but the pain never reaches him. Our boy stands there grinning inside his own head, stunned by how good it feels. The beast tries to deny what just happened, calling humans weak and accusing Tenma of hiding a level over 40. Then Tenma forces the pain back onto it, and the beast screams for real. Tenma remembers most disaster beasts die without much feeling, so this scream lands different. The beast begs when Tenma goes for its head, and an onlooker blurts that Tenma is no human at all. The room just watched the level 0 kid make a disaster beast prey. Once the danger passes, the strange high starts fading from Tenma's body. The wound finally bites back, and he realizes he still has work to finish before he can leave. Tenma crushes what remains of the beast to get the Stele. Before going back, he turns to Death and checks the Shikigami that helped carry him through the trial. Death is bigger now, so Tenma checks the status and sees the answer right away. As Death levels up, its body grows too, and this guy quietly wonders how massive it will get after dozens more levels. Back at the Izumi Nindo residence on Prophecy Day 1, 1:35 AM, the barrier finally vanishes. Saya, Tenma's worried friend, calls out that he succeeded, but Tenma has burned through travel, combat, stamina, and blood all at once. Then a calamity beast cry cuts through the relief, and Tenma stiffens because the barrier should already be gone. An authority voice orders Iberia back to his room while Saya recognizes the sound getting closer. Death charges in, but Tenma is too exhausted to read the situation cleanly. He raises his sword anyway, ready to cut down whatever comes near him. Josuke moves to attack too, until an observer shouts that the mad dog is Tenma's Shikigami. The warning comes a breath too late, and Tenma's blade still meets death head-on. Josuke and Saya finally catch the warning in time. Death is Tenma's Shikigami, so the creature rushing in is not the next threat. It is one of Tenma's own pieces on the board. Saya stares at Tenma and starts counting the things that make no sense. His level never rises, his combat power beats students his age, and now he is using skills that should belong to other jobs. Tenma only gets out Iberia's name before his body gives up on him. He tells Saya to let him rest for a while, then drops so hard Saya panics and cries that she does not know what to do. Josuke cuts through Saya's panic and tells her Tenma is still breathing. The kid is alive, but his wounds need treatment now, so Josuke asks for the Kodama bandages. Saya hands the bandages over, and Josuke takes the job like he has no room left to hesitate. He admits he may never match Tenma in combat, but there are still things only he can do. Josuke, Tenma's ally with the wind elementalist job, calls on the air currents he spent years treating like a useless gift. He hated that his rank 2 healing skill only worked on himself and allies. But Tenma is bleeding out in front of him, so he finally uses it. Josuke pushes the healing into Tenma and begs him to hold on. When he calls out Tenma's name, the fight around them narrows to one job: keep this guy breathing. At 11:35 AM on Prophecy Day 1, near the Izumi Nindo residence, the next disaster starts before Tenma can recover. A purple barrier bursts out from the fallen stone monument and cuts the area off. Inside that barrier, Josuke finds Kashima injured and rushes to heal him while asking what happened outside. Kashima can barely answer before the warning comes out: run! The threat is a Minotaur warrior from the Ox tribe, level 81, and Josuke reads its build, defense, power, and speed all at once. He says even a special grade savior would not stand a chance, so he pleads with Izumi to flee. Then the Minotaur spots the Northern Continent commander and recognizes him as the target. It decides Lord Saragami does not even need to move because the prey has walked right into reach. Tenma shouts for Father, the authority figure, in alarm, then breaks into despair as he cries that everything is over. Father's danger is enough to make him believe the fight has already turned against them. Haiden Akira, the river-crossing veteran with the strongest physique, arrives too late for comfort. The enemy calls him late, Haiden moves anyway, and his strike slams Tenma before our boy can steady himself. Tenma snaps back at the warning, but the field gives him no time to argue. Haiden Akira drives upward to stop the Minotaur, and Tenma throws himself into the same opening before the creature can crush Father for good. The Minotaur has the body, the speed, and the battlefield. Tenma forces his exhausted body to answer anyway, focusing on the one thing in front of him: keep the capture from becoming final. The creature survives the counter, and the nearby fighters stop calling it human at all. One woman starts to celebrate, then cuts herself off as the barrier still hangs over them, and the real enemy keeps moving inside it. Inside the red barrier, the demons stop treating the humans like opponents and start treating them like bait. Red Flame Demon King, the demon operative at level 37, wants to watch Saragami torment humanity, but White Oni arrives above him with a colder order. White Oni, the level 49 demon operative, tells Red Flame Demon King to stop wasting time. Their mission is to capture Father, and failure is not an option they want to explain to Lord Tenma. Then the Grudge King of Frostbite appears, a level 87 demon general who dwarfs the others and keeps the plan moving. He says Saragami's red barrier is drawing in the strongest humans, so the capture team can slip toward its real target while everyone looks the wrong way. With Saragami holding human attention, the demons head for their destination. A robed guide says Lord Tenma will lead them through the evil eye left in the human world, and that is enough for the whole squad to move. Back inside the residence that night, Tenma lies barely alive in an ornate room. His eyes snap open, but his body is still trapped between blood loss, exhaustion, and whatever memory is dragging him under. Inside Tenma's dream, he is thrown back into a burning town with a red blade in his hand. The memory is not giving him rest. It drops him into danger so immediate that he is already armed to face it. Years earlier in the dream, child Tenma runs to his mother with a terrible kind of pride. He says he finally found a disaster beast that feels pain like humans do, and he crushed its skull to avenge her death. His mother does not praise him. Tenma clutches at her sleeve as she tells him there are things more important than revenge, even more important than killing every last disaster beast. She looks straight at him and tells him not to use his power for vengeance. Tenma breaks under that answer, because revenge is the only promise he knows how to keep. Suspended in that dream, Tenma turns his pain toward Father too, and swears the beast will not take anyone else from him. Then he says every last one of them will die, and the hate in his eyes answers before his mother can. His mother only looks tired now, like she has said everything she was allowed to say. She tells him it is time for her to go, and Tenma reaches after her, desperate, asking where she is going. Back inside the dream of his childhood, Tenma is no longer just the system's broken level 0. He has power now, and his first instinct is still to spend it on revenge. His mother leaves him with one last warning: do not let hatred consume you. Then the dream turns cruel. A voice sneers that crying for the dead is typical of a lowly creature, and Tenma's grief hardens into rage as he realizes who is speaking. Lord Tenma steps out as the Devil of Fuin, the demon tied to the nightmare Tenma can never bury. Tenma snaps, screams at him, and pours everything he has into killing him right there. Tenma's attack lands, but Lord Tenma does not fall. He taunts Tenma to slow down and promises he will taste true despair again soon, then crushes him back into that same broken terror. Even battered, Tenma keeps his eyes on Lord Lord Tenma and spits out the only answer he has left. He swears he is going to kill him. Back in the present, Tenma wakes on a bed and drags himself out of that nightmare. He remembers being near death and wonders if Iberia used the Kodama bandages to patch him up. The dream still clings to him because its warning felt too real. Tenma thinks about the disaster beast he has to protect, checks whether Josuke and Aiden, the prophecy master, are safe, and decides the beasts are already plotting something. On prophecy day 2 at 3:03 a.m., Tenma wakes from his coma and forces himself alert. Our boy does not trust the quiet, so he heads to Josuke to check the situation himself. Izumi, the teacher watching over the students, immediately gets distracted by death and wants to rename the dog Shikigami. Tenma says he is not a Shikigami user, then privately decides she is absolutely not naming death. Wise call, honestly. Tenma notices Iberia has finally used his real ability, and then questions Izumi about why she did not fight earlier. Izumi admits she is mainly a healer, with offensive skills that barely hit hard enough to matter. Tenma asks Jusuke if any other saviors arrived while he was knocked out, but Jusuke says no. Jusuke adds that Izumi said nearby saviors were dispatched, and after a full day, they should already be close. Tenma agrees with the timing, but his gut turns cold. He feels something malevolent drawing closer, and the forest outside starts to feel less like rescue and more like a trap. Elsewhere in the remote forest, two apprentice saviors push toward the mission site. One asks how much farther, and the other says only a few kilometers remain before this job earns them third-class promotion. The apprentice starts worrying because the place is far too deep for the greatest crafter of the northern province to live there. Then his partner orders him to stop, and both of them brace for a fight. In the remote forest, the apprentice saviors stop cold because one of them feels a strange presence. The Red Flame Demon King steps out of hiding, and the team snaps into battle stations against a disaster beast before the rescue mission can even reach Tenma's side. The saviors try to break through fast, but the Red Flame Demon King blocks their path and toys with their panic. He asks if they are heading to the same destination, and the question lands worse than the attack. Tenma Itsuki stands in a burning city with his sword as a horned fire demon looms over the destruction. The demon sneers that one fireball is enough to destroy humans, making clear how badly outmatched they are. White Oni answers from nearby after crushing the rest of the saviors flat. The Red Flame Demon King calls him cruel, but White Oni only asks where he came from without any barrier around to mark a disaster beast attack. White Oni says they traveled a long way to get here, and the Red Flame Demon King realizes this is no random hunt. When White Oni reaches for the surviving captive, the Red Flame Demon King orders him not to kill her because he wants his own fun first. White Oni turns the pressure on the Red Flame Demon King instead, and that ends the argument fast. The Red Flame Demon King backs down and begs him to release the spell before his body freezes solid. His pride takes the day off. Showa, the hostage caught in the demon's hands, thinks they might actually be letting her go. The Red Flame Demon King knows only the target and the owner are off limits, so he wonders why this woman matters enough to spare. Showa falls silent, and the Red Flame Demon King mistakes it for death. White Oni corrects him. Showa is not dying, she is being demonized. White Oni explains that demonization makes a human completely obedient to Lord Tenma. Showa's eyes change, the mark settles in, and the hostage becomes Lord Tenma's hidden servant. The Wraith King gives Showa her orders, hide her identity, and live undercover inside human society. Showa accepts and waits for the day Lord Tenma descends. With Showa sent back as a sleeper agent, the Red Flame Demon King still questions the point of recruiting someone so weak. The demons leave the ambush site with their mission moving, and Tenma's side has no idea a servant of Lord Tenma is heading into the human community. At the ambush site, the Red Flame Demon King shuts down White Oni's complaint about Showa being weak. Lord Tenma wants Showa hidden inside human society, so the demons move out before anyone can trace the demonization back to them. Back at the workshop, Tenma's side leans on the Iron Golem for defense because its stats match a level 30 Awakener. Josuke is not there, so the workshop aide explains that he went to ask the old crafter about Tenma's critical crystal. Tenma tells the old crafter his critical rate rose from 3% to 4% after the disaster beast fight. The old crafter says landing that hit at 3% is absurd luck, but Tenma remembers something else. After the hit, his senses sharpened while his mind stayed calm. The old crafter realizes Tenma entered a flow state, and Tenma pauses at the term. He explains that flow happens when an awakener sinks completely into a task. Time bends in their head, and their body starts moving before thought can catch up. For awakeners, flow sharpens the senses and boosts agility, defense, and magic at the same time. The old crafter warns Tenma that only a handful can do it at all, because it needs skill, a clear mind, and luck lining up together. The old crafter admits he reached flow 2 years after becoming an awakener, and even that counts as early. Then he looks at Tenma and stops short, because this kid reached it way too fast. Still inside the workshop, Tenma suddenly goes alert. He senses 3 huge mana signatures approaching, and suspects they might be awakeners sent by Izumi, so he steps out to check before they reach the building. Outside the workshop, the others ask why Tenma is so tense. Tenma says he felt a mana surge and thought it might be a disaster beast, but the old crafter relaxes because no barrier has formed and the Iron Golem is active. Before that reassurance can settle, a sudden attack rips through the defense. The Iron Golem drops before it can even react, and the defenders now know the thing protecting them is already gone. 3 fighters face the attackers, but the Red Flame Demon King sees only 3 opponents and calls it easy. White Oni steps forward at level 54, and Tenma stands in the burning wreckage with the demons already inside striking range. At 3:01 a.m. on Prophecy Day 2, the attackers spread through the wreckage with with mana no one there recognizes. Frostbite Wraith King breaks off to capture Aiden and leaves Red Flame Demon King and White Oni to hold the fight. So the defenders realize the disaster beasts are talking and choosing targets. Jusuke plants himself in the path to Aiden and refuses to move. White Oni closes the gap before anyone can track him, and Jusuke forces himself to stay up because letting that thing pass puts Aiden in its hands. Frostbite Wraith King answers the block by sealing the defenders inside an ice wall. They hammer at it from inside, but even raw strength barely cracks it, so the rescue stalls while Aiden stays exposed. The Frostbite Wraith King bears down on Tenma, and our boy stops looking at the wall and starts breaking through it. Tenma tears out through the ice, and Josuke's name cuts through the chaos as the defenders try to regroup around him. Red Flame Demon King punishes that hesitation and warns Tenma he has no time to worry about anyone else. Tenma yells for Iberia to get away, throws up Black Wall, and the blast still drives Iberia back through the shock. Tenma's analysis barely reaches 1%, but he already catches the problem. Red Flame Demon King's skill sits at A rank. He fights through the Shikigami's pressure, then admits he should have used Thunderbreaker instead of trusting Black Wall to hold. When the counter lands harder than Tenma meant, he pauses and wonders if he overdid it. He checks whether the enemy might be the Demon Eyebear, but the next readout pulls up Tenma himself as human, level 0, fixed. Tenma brings out his Shikigami anyway, choosing numbers over pride while the scan crawls. Red Flame Demon King spots the setup at once and calls out Tenma's 2-on-1 plan, so the fight shifts into a duel of tricks instead of raw hits. Red Flame Demon King laughs off the extra Shikigami and tells Tenma that even more summons would not save him. Tenma still sends Aiden in and calls that he is counting on him, but the demon dodges clean and tracks the Shikigami rushing for the target. Tenma reads the demon's delay and thinks he can buy time because Red Flame Demon King will not kill him right away, but our boy refuses to crawl in front of a disaster beast, so the demon snaps back that Tenma looks weak as hell. Red Flame Demon King takes Tenma's defiance as human arrogance and stops playing with him. He swells into a stronger form and decides to burn Tenma down now. Tenma watches the change instead of panicking. He catches that the demon gets bigger without getting faster, then pins him as a long-range skill type and rushes inside his reach. Red Flame Demon King panics when Tenma closes the gap almost instantly, but the demon has been waiting for that exact move, and he counters with the weakness Tenma thought he had found. Tenma gets thrown down hard and finally admits he fell for it. Red Flame Demon King stands over him and says Tenma completely fooled him with reset scan, but now he knows this level 0 is not normal. Red Flame Demon King grins down at Tenma and tells him he would die easier if he just lay still. Pinned under pressure, Tenma keeps the analysis running and wonders if the delay comes from the demon's A-rank skill. Tenma steadies himself as the scan starts pulling apart the demon's records. A readout calls Red Flame Demon King a top human crafter turned toolmaker, and the demon catches the threat at once, asking if Tenma plans to kill him. Red Flame Demon King does not beg. He says he hates being ordered around, freezes Tenma in an instant, and Tenma has to break out by force before the demon can lock the fight down completely. Tenma reads the ice covering his body and judges the skill as at least A rank. As he looks down from above, blue energy descends toward a street level target, so the danger is no longer just the freeze around him. Tenma sees Father, the authority figure, getting closer to being kidnapped, so he weighs a surprise attack. Then his own Shikigami dives in first, and the enemy recognizes it as Tenma's familiar right away. The Shikigami lunges to force an opening, spreading its wings and striking with full force. The armored enemy blocks it with an energy shield, then fires a blue counterblast that repels Tenma's familiar and ruins that attack. Tenma thinks about calling for help, then remembers he is already badly injured. He cuts that idea off hard and swears he will save Father himself. That is when Tenma remembers Dragon Gear, the one weapon under Father's bed that might let him win. In Tenma's memory, a younger him promises Father he is coming right away. Back on the battlefield, the enemy sneers at anyone who ran instead of helping, even dragging Iberia into the insult. A crystalline ally sends Tenma toward his destination and leaves the cleanup to the two still fighting. Red Flame Demon King tries to pin Tenma down with Red Flame Bullet, but Tenma forces his body to move and triggers Thunderbreaker. The demon notices his speed dropping and presses harder. Red Flame Demon King floods the area with more shots and asks how long Tenma can keep dodging. Tenma answers by pushing through with lightning wrapped around him, but his injured body starts giving out. The barrage gets too thick and Tenma admits he could dodge it normally if he were not this beaten up. He curses under the pressure while the analysis keeps climbing from 90 to 96%. Tenma gets swallowed by Red Flame Demon King's fire, and the pain drags up an old memory. He thinks of those same flames from before, then forces his eyes back onto the fight because Father is still in danger. Red Flame Demon King grins and fires another Red Flame bullet straight through the opening. Tenma takes it hard, but the system finally finishes its analysis at 100%. The moment the analysis completes, Tenma gains Black Wall at level 3 instead of a brand new skill. His defense and magic jump by 50 each, and our boy realizes the demon's favorite shot just lost its bite. Red Flame Demon King sees Tenma's wrecked condition and bets the new defense will not last. Tenma ignores that, charges in behind Black Wall, and catches him off guard before the demon can reset. Tenma's body snaps back into fighting shape, and his focus turns sharp. He planned to go save Aiden first, but those flames bring back something ugly, so Red Flame Demon King moves to the top of the list. Elsewhere on the battlefield, Iberia blocks a heavy strike with his gear and still gets blasted away. He realizes the enemy would have killed him without that guard, so he scrambles to get back before the others get buried. Josuke catches up from above and sees Iberia trying to retreat. He figures this chase can buy Tenma time, but his mind jumps to the real problem. Master and Iberia still need help. Josuke grips his weapon and decides to end this fast. He pushes toward the pursuer and quietly begs the others to hold out until he can return. Back in Father's room, Tenma tears through the place for the tool Father hid under the bed. He finds the emblem, activates it, and the dragon gear answers him. Very convenient. Also terrifying, Tenma equips dragon gear and feels the armor stack power onto him right away. The gear gives attack and ability boosts, then adds more every minute, but the limit is 15 minutes before the side effects hit. As the dragon presence inside the gear warns Tenma to focus on the enemy in front of him, the kid locks back onto the fight. Father has 15 minutes left on Tenma's clock. Tenma locks dragon gear onto himself and thinks of Father's warning. Past 15 minutes, the gear starts wrecking the wearer. Our boy still drives forward, telling himself he will save Father before that clock runs out. In the overgrown battlefield, Father watches the Red Flame Demon King relax while the others close in. The demon says only a special class savior can threaten him, and right now those saviors are busy with the Demon Lord's forces. Father presses him on whether this whole attack is bait, and the Red Flame Demon King admits Father is not the only prize. Father starts to piece it together, but the demon cuts the thought short as more attackers gather around him. The Red Flame Demon King snaps that the attackers are persistent pests, which means the pressure on him still has not stopped. 3 curved energy blades slam into the ground, turning that pressure into another direct hit he has to answer. Dragon Gear keeps stacking power on Tenma, and the system marks 2 minutes of use with attack and ability boosts. The Red Flame Demon King recognizes the timing. First the Shikigami, now Tenma himself, and his patience starts to burn thin. Tenma sees the fire damage already done around Father and refuses to slow down. The Red Flame Demon King had been burned black from the earlier exchange, but his body recovers fast enough to make Tenma grit his teeth. The Red Flame Demon King shrugs off the damage and floods the field with fire. Sure, Tenma will roast if he faces it head on. Tenma plants himself anyway and activates Black Ice Wall. The flames crash into Tenma's wall and die there, so the demon's boast lands badly. Tenma reads the system notice. Blocking an A-rank fire skill raises his defense by 15%. Now Tenma talks back, calling the Red Flame Demon King the helpless one, and triggers Thunderbreaker. The demon sees Tenma speed up again, but he trusts his Crimson Flame barrier to hold. Tenma goes straight for the barrier with first scale removal, promising to peel off every last layer. The Red Flame Demon King realizes too late that Tenma is not trying to overpower the shield. He is ripping it apart piece by piece. Tenma drives the final hit through the broken defense, and the Red Flame Demon King's fire erupts outward in a violent blast. The 15-minute clock keeps running. At the burning battlefield, Tenma has turned a broken level 0 body into a weapon, but Father is still in demon hands, and the Dragon Gear timer is still eating away at him. The system tells him Black Ice Wall blocked an A-rank fire skill, and his defense jumps another 15%. Tenma pushes back toward the Red Flame Demon King, ready to end this before the gear ruins him. The demon grins and announces it is cooking time, so Tenma immediately reads the danger and runs, thinking if that fire catches him, he dies. The Red Flame Demon King drags out a nastier form and roars the name White Ogre Grudge King. Tenma stays alive through the first rush, but the demon is the one screaming for help when our boy keeps tearing through his defenses. The demon refuses to accept a human killing him, and snarls that it cannot end like this. Tenma answers with his blade instead of a speech, and the Red Flame Demon King finally stares at the worst label in the world, a mere level 0. Then Tenma's broken critical crystal gives him the opening he needs. The next hit is guaranteed critical, so the kid commits everything to one finisher and drives it through the demon before the fire can swallow Father's rescue window. The Red Flame Demon King tries to rise out of the flames one last time, still clinging to demon pride. Tenma cuts through the comeback, blasts him apart, and the battlefield finally goes quiet around the fallen carcass. Standing over the body, Tenma catches himself thinking he entered flow state again and wanted the demon to suffer more. After another critical hit, he pieces it together. The critical trigger may be throwing him into that state automatically. With flow state stacked on his passive effects, Tenma's total stats shoot past 2,000. Then the demon's absorbed karma condenses into an orb, so he realizes the kill has produced a separate karma mass, not just a stat boost. The karma streaks toward the forest, so Tenma wonders if it is heading for Josuke. He spots the workshop where Death, the pressure reliever, and Aiden are, but the karma does not split between the life signals, and that tells him Death has to be retrieved as a Shikigami before the flow is lost. Tenma forces power through the Dragon Gear and drives a full-strength blow into the dragon-like disaster beast, blocking the way. The hit fails to break its defense, so he grits out the only plan left. If one hit is not enough, he keeps attacking. The Elder watches Tenma struggle and calls him a foolish brat for missing the gap between them. Tenma still has Father to save, the karma trail to chase, and a Dragon Gear clock that has not stopped ticking. Tenma screams for Iberia as the fight tilts ugly, but Iberia stays locked on Father. He chooses the one thing Tenma would choose too, saving Father even if it costs him the bond he has left. The Elder barks for him to stop, but the enemy only sneers at the sight of family love. He calls human feelings disgusting, then ends the talk and moves to crush them outright. The The armored disaster beast steps in with power Tenma still cannot break cleanly. It slams him back, tells him to know his place, and the Dragon Gear timer drops to 3 minutes. That timer has no manners. At Prophecy Day 23:20 AM, Tenma levels from 19 to 20 in the middle of the fight. The beast changes again, but our boy forces his way in and calls for death as he lands the killing blow. Tenma reads the level up at once. Death absorbed the karma, so he snaps his focus to Aiden and the other disaster beast still loose near the workshop. The magic surge hits so hard that a nearby awakener panics and asks what happened. Tenma feels the intense wave of power, then channels raw electrical magic himself, raising the fight to a level even the others can sense. Back near the forest fight, Jusie cuts into the disaster beast and sees the old wound seal right back up. He hates regeneration beasts most, but the karma orb from Tenma reaches him, so he forces himself to hold the line. Jusuke watches the beast protect its head and neck every time he aims there. He catches the 1-second gap during regeneration, trusts the read, and drives his strike straight for that weak point. Back near the forest, Josuke keeps hammering the regenerating disaster beast because he finally has its pattern. He thinks regeneration takes at least 1 second, so the instant the wound closes, the head and neck stay open. Josuke drives the next strike into that weak point before the beast can guard it. The critical hit lands clean, and the disaster beast breaks apart for good. Elsewhere, Iberia is still caught on Tenma, so Aiden presses him on it. Iberia admits he wants to become someone like Tenma, but when Aiden asks why, our boy has no answer ready. Aiden reminds Iberia that he has met plenty of powerful people, even the Northern Continent commander. Then Aiden adds that he has more fame and battle experience than Tenma, and Iberia nearly chokes on the comparison. Aiden backs off and tells Iberia not to worry about it, but Iberia starts turning the question over anyway, because he has never really asked himself why Tenma is the one he keeps chasing. 10 years earlier, young Iberia gets a wooden sword for his birthday. He is so proud that he names it the Justice Unbeatable Hero Sword, and his mother gently accepts the very serious title. In the city streets, young Iberia runs out to show everyone his new hero weapon. His mother watches him go and wonders if he finally has friends. The other kids spot the birthday present and ask to borrow it. When Iberia hesitates, they press him with his father's fame as a crafter, saying his family can just make more. One kid promises they will give it right back, but Iberia knows he only just got the sword and needs to refuse. Then the masked child corners him with a question he cannot handle, and Iberia hands it over. Trying to stay brave, Iberia plays awakened anyway, and charges imaginary disaster beasts without his sword. His mother has to remind the kids to return it, because even this small treasure is already slipping out of his hands. Back at home, his mother notices the wooden sword is missing. She understands right away that the kids took it again, and young Iberia decides he has to get it back himself. So Iberia runs into the fight for his stolen birthday sword. He wants to be brave, but the street answers him with fists instead. Years before all this, the kids who stole Iberia's birthday sword break him down with words first. They tell him he cannot protect anything precious, and he cannot even shout for help. So Iberia folds into himself with the sword gone and his courage gone with it. Back in the present, that old hurt sits in Iberia's head as he turns over the question he never answered. Why does he look up to Tenma so much after meeting stronger names and louder heroes? Years earlier at the hospital, Iberia's father gets the answer no family wants. The doctor says they did everything they could, but Iberia's mother was always frail, so all the family can do now is stay beside her. Inside the hospital room, Iberia goes to his dying mother and tries to comfort her before she can comfort him. He begs her not to cry, but she already knows what kind of world her gentle son is walking into. Iberia's mother tells him his father calls him spineless, then gives the line that stays with him for years. Kindness without strength can turn cruel, because a kind person who cannot protect anyone only gets hurt too. She takes Iberia's hand and asks him to take care of his father for her. Then the monitor goes flat, and Iberia loses the one person who made his kindness feel safe. Iberia answers the empty room with a child's vow. He promises he will become the world's strongest, bravest, and kindest awakened, because weak kindness has already cost him his mother. Back in the present, Iberia finally traces that promise to Tenma. When he first met Tenma, he feared his strength, but traveling with him shows Iberia the other half. Tenma protects his comrades with a rough kind of care. So Iberia admits the answer to himself. Tenma is the awakened he dreamed of becoming, and even if Iberia thinks he has no talent, he still wants to stand beside him and fight. Back in the burning city, that dream twists hard. Dragon gear erupts around Iberia, and Tenma faces the huge dragon form where his ally should be. In the moonlit quiet after the first shock, someone calls Iberia's name and asks why he put dragon gear on again when he was forbidden from wearing it. Iberia does not answer like himself. The armor surges and his voice comes out in pain. Iberia strains through the transformation, confused enough to ask if anyone said something. Then he looks for Aiden, and the question lands badly, because Aiden is already missing. Iberia loses control and rushes Tenma with the dragon body, all claws and teeth now. Tenma gets blasted back, hits the ground, and looks up as the thing wearing his ally towers over him. Tenma shouts for Iberia to snap out of it, but the answer is a broken laugh. Iberia's body keeps twisting harder, and the voice coming out of him does not sound like the friend who was worried about Aiden a second ago. Iberia attacks with a wind skill, and Tenma gets caught in it before he can talk him down. Our boy reads the skill fast and says Iberia is using wind elementalist power, but he still cannot tell if Dragon Gear is doing this or if a disaster beast is pulling the strings. Tenma stops trying to reason through the storm and decides to force Iberia calm first, but the magic coming off the attack is definitely Iberia's, so Tenma freezes for one ugly second because his own ally is really repeatedly swinging at him. Then Iberia breaks through for a heartbeat and begs Tenma to kill him. Tenma refuses with his whole body, so Iberia's armor drags him back into the fight and sends him crashing away as someone yells for him to look out. Iberia grabs Tenma again before the kid can reset his stance. The next hit drives Tenma down hard, and Iberia gets launched upward in the same burst, even more out of control than before. Back in the ruined city, Jin, the godlike rescuer who always tries to save people, reaches the worst answer first. He sees Tenma getting overwhelmed and says Dragon Gear's side effect has taken Iberia, so they have to rip it off fast. Jin shuts that hope down almost immediately. He has seen another awakened person taken over by Dragon Gear, and he says once it fully fuses with the body, it only comes off when the wearer dies. Tenma can only choke out that there is no way. Jin moves to do the cruel job himself, but the person beside him panics and tries to stop him before Iberia's rescue turns into an execution. Jin forces himself away from Iberia and gives the rescue order. Aiden has been taken by the ice-using disaster beast, so Jin sends Death to track him before that trail goes cold. But Jin still begs for time with Iberia first. He has words left for him, so he summons Death and turns the rescue into a race on two fronts. Death tears out of the ground, and Jin climbs on without looking back. He warns that if Iberia gets away now, he will only grow stronger and more feral. Iberia answers with Windblade, but the attack does not come like a killing strike. Aiden reads the hesitation and realizes Jin still does not want Iberia hurt. Then Death pushes harder and unleashes 1,000 Windblades. Iberia tries to endure it, but the storm catches him anyway, and the friend Tenma wants to save gets carved down in front of them. Elsewhere, inside the Demon Side's command, a report reaches Lady Tenma. Aiden has been captured, but Red Flame Demon King, the level 37, and White Oni are already dead at human hands. Lady Tenma barely flinches at those losses. Fighters at that level can be replaced, but Aiden is the prize they needed, so the Demon Side keeps moving. Then another report lands wrong. Lord Saru Shakuma is not sweeping the field because one special class human is holding him alone. Back on that battlefield, Lord Saru Shakuma hammers the area again and again. The fight has been going since yesterday afternoon, and even the wounded Watchers have had time to recover. The next impact rocks the whole battlefield, and the Watcher finally names the threat. Lord Saru Shokuma is one of the 8 Demon Kings, and Hitan Akira, the war veteran with the strongest physique, is still taking blows that can break the earth. The Watcher panics and moves to help, because if Hitan Akira falls, nobody there can stop that disaster beast. But North Rank 1, the Northern Top Awakener, stops that fear cold and says Hitan is not weak enough to die from attacks like this. Then Hitan Akira's power rises, and the battlefield finally understands what special class really means. At the top of humanity, they are not people you rush in to save. Hitan Akira strains, snarls, and forces his body into its next state. The Demon King's attacks keep coming, but Hitan is still standing. Hitan Akira forces his body into the second form, and North Rank 1 watches without panic. She remembers seeing it before, while the others stare at him and realize the pressure around him has changed completely. Hitan Akira's new form takes over the battlefield, and the Demon King no longer gets to treat him like a wounded target. Every step Hitan takes pushes the fight back toward the barrier stone pillar, where the next mistake could break the whole defense line. North Rank 1 reads the Demon King's plan fast. It wants the stone pillar holding the barrier destroyed, but Hitan Akira keeps his mind even while his power spikes, so she knows he can still protect allies instead of flattening everything around him. When the power finally drops, Tenma wakes on the ground with his body still marked from the strain. Confused and hurt, he can only think, why am I here? Later, deep in the mountains, Tenma stands in the ruins of a burning village and thinks defeating the disaster beast should have ended this. Instead, our boy is escorting the Northern Continent Commander toward the source of a strange wave ahead. The Northern Continent Commander moves first, ready for a humanoid disaster beast, but the shape ahead stops him cold. He recognizes Tenma's back, calls his name, and Tenma answers through the blood by calling for Choa, the teacher from his earlier battles. The Northern Continent Commander demands to know what happened to Tenma's injuries and what tore this place apart. Tenma starts to explain, but the Northern Continent Commander senses another presence nearby, and the shadows still have one more person waiting inside them. 3 glowing beast-like silhouettes appear at once as the masked figure addresses Izumi, the teaching instructor, about the battle. The threat is no longer a single shape in front of him, so he has multiple possible enemies to account for before he can act. The report marks it as Prophecy Day 2, 334 AM. After Aiden is taken, the Northern Continent Commander has Death track the Disaster Beast's magic, but the hunt only turns up clones. The Disaster Beast expects hunters on its trail, so it leaves copies everywhere and hides the real body. Tenma can chase it now, but he has no clean direction. Back with the wounded group, Saya, Tenma's friend who keeps trying to pull him back from the edge, checks his condition. His cuts stop bleeding, but he refuses her treatment anyway. Saya feels Tenma's anger getting worse inside him. She worries that if it keeps burning, hatred will swallow him before the Disaster Beast does. Alone, Tenma holds a family photo from happier days, so his anger now has a clear source instead of being just blind rage. The memory shifts to an earlier meeting where a woman asks Saya her name, tying his pain back to the people in his life. Tenma remembers clinging to that promise and refusing to leave Aiden's side. Our boy reaches for the only tracker he still trusts and calls Death forward. Death answers as the system marks it as a B-rank level 20 hound. Tenma doesn't wait for comfort, because the real Disaster Beast is still out there. Jin steps into the path with him, ready to chase the ice attribute Disaster Beast. Tenma says they will catch it, and his face makes it clear he means now. At the entrance, the sudden movement draws everyone out. A student asks what what happened, and an armored figure sizes Tenma up as the Northern Continent Commander's injured second disciple. Tenma tells them straight that he is going to find the Ice Attribute Disaster Beast and save Aiden. Someone blocks him before he can leave. Father, the authority figure who assigns trials, shuts Tenma down with one cold answer. Tenma does not have the qualification yet. Tenma snaps back that being called no savior does not erase his right to help. He promised Iberia he would save Aiden, so stopping him now just makes him push harder. When Tenma says he will go even if they oppose him, the room turns tense fast. Saya calls Father too blunt and asks if he understands Tenma's state right now. Father doesn't back down, but he gives Tenma a path instead of a wall. If Tenma wants the right to handle Aiden's rescue, he has to surpass special class. Tenma asks what he can do right now, and Father gives him the answer. Join Apex Camp. Taiwa Jin, the tournament rookie, and Hiton Akira both survived that harsh training, so Tenma's next road starts there. Right now, Tenma has Aiden stolen, his anger barely buried, and one clean road left. Get strong enough that nobody can bench him again. Father tells him his potential can pass special class, and if Tenma reaches that level, Father will push the Alliance to let him handle Aiden's rescue. Tenma stops arguing and asks for the next step he can take right now. Father gives him one name, Apex Camp. Father explains that Apex Camp is the brutal training ground that shaped people like Taewajin and Hiton Akira. If Tenma clears his trials, he can rise high in the main tournament and earn the power he is demanding. Still injured and barely holding himself together, Tenma accepts without blinking. He tells Father, I'll join Apex Camp. Before Tenma can chase strength on broken legs, Father makes him deal with his body first. He starts treating the wounds, and Tenma turns to Choa for the answer Father did not give him. What Apex Camp is really like. Choa knows Apex Camp, and her first reaction is alarm, not excitement. When Tenma asks, she warns him that only the geniuses among geniuses can join, so his plan is serious enough to make her question it immediately. Choa has watched praised geniuses enter that camp and come out knowing they are ordinary. Some break mentally, some collapse, and some never come back at all. Tenma hears the part about death and decides that is the selling point. He says it is perfect, because our boy can only grow by fighting powerful disaster beasts on the edge of dying. A nearby awakener notices Choa's face going red and asks if the healing drained her. Choa rushes out an excuse about long skill use heating up her body, but inside she can hear her own heartbeat louder than ever. When Tenma heads for the door, Choa asks where he is going. He keeps it short, to say goodbye. That night, at the grave marker, Tenma meets Jusuke, the ally from the disaster beast fights, who still carries Aiden's debt on his back. Tenma apologizes for making him face something so cruel, but Jusuke says he chose it himself and asks if Tenma is already leaving. Josuke admits he would have died to a disaster beast long ago if his master had not found him. He grips the armor and weapons Aiden left him, then says even his life came from that man. Tenma's red-eyed stare hardens into a clear decision. Whatever this moment costs him, he is not backing away. At Aiden's grave, Tenma answers Josuke's guilt with a promise. He says he will become a savior and rescue Aiden with him, and the kid means every word. Josuke looks at Tenma and thinks he looks pathetic beside this guy, but he does not run from it, so he tells Tenma he will wait. Nearby, Saya watches Tenma move again. After getting wrecked only hours ago, she can tell he has not healed inside. He has shoved the ugly feelings down for now. Father sees too many suspicious parts in the attack, so he leaves to gather the attack commanders from each continent. Before he goes, he puts Tenma in Saya's hands, and Saya takes the job without blinking. Before they leave, Tenma notices Choa acting unusually happy. Then he asks Saya where they are going, and she shuts that down as classified. Saya insists she is Tenma's guardian, not some kid tagging along. The answer is obvious to her, so she points the group straight toward Nakasu to join Apex Camp. While Tenma heads for Apex Camp, another family is still trapped in the damage he left behind. Power erupts around a bandaged victim, and the room turns into panic. The victim thrashes in pain while a protector curls around them, trying to keep them from breaking again. The force around the victim keeps pulling harder, and the screaming does not stop. The bandaged victim reaches for comfort, and their mother holds them through the nightmare. The mother asks if they dreamed of the person who hurt them again, then swears the pain will be returned 100-fold. A masked older brother steps forward, burning with the same rage. He promises to avenge his sibling and make the enemy suffer a living hell. The victim names Tenma as the one who did this, so the older brother locks onto Apex Camp. If Tenma enters the preliminaries, he will crush him there. At Nakasu, Tenma finally reaches Apex Camp, and the place is far bigger than he expected. Showa's warning lands fast, because every participant here carries themselves like they already belong at the top. Inside Apex Camp, Showa stops at the entrance because she cannot follow Tenma any farther. She warns him to stay quiet and keep off people's radar, so Tenma gives her a short nod and walks in alone. At registration, the official asks each participant to show a bracelet before letting them through. When Tenma's level 0 mark comes up, another participant sneers that a level 0 only gets here through connections. The official sends Tenma to choose a room and pay the accommodation fee, and our boy immediately runs into the camp's point system. The official explains that prelim points become spending money here, and Tenma quietly notes that points come from defeating enemies. At the room board, Tenma sees the cheap normal room, the larger luxury room, and the villa that costs 2,000 points a month. A normal room works for him alone, but death is with him too, so Tenma says, I'll take the villa. That choice hits the room like a thrown chair. One participant stares after Tenma and wonders how many prelim points he earned, while another admits he only had 1,600 600 and calls the youth terrifying. Tenma heads back toward reception because he still needs to find the villa. Before he gets far, two South Continent Awakeners step in, act friendly, and offer to guide him when he says he is looking for the villa. The two guides point vaguely at first, but the word villa makes them freeze. Tenma keeps walking between the startled bystanders, and the guides realize this level 0 is carrying enough points to be worth targeting. Nearby, Akagami Shion, the North Continent Prelims 5th place finisher, watches the setup with a cat at his side. He grins because Tenma looks ready to become the guide's next victim. Around the camp, stories already follow people who burn through fights, weapons, and brutal trials just to reach this place. So when Tenma spends 2,000 points on a villa, the watching participants decide even a first place finisher would hesitate. And they peg him as a rich, spoiled kid who does not understand the value of points. Tenma presses the guide for the villa area, and when the guide pretends not to remember, Tenma decides to find it himself. That snaps the guide back fast, and he suddenly remembers the way. Near the villa area, the other examinees spot Fumiya Futaki and Ichitora Sano, two South Continent outcasts who trap careless participants for points. Tenma keeps walking into their setup, and the watchers already think the kid in the middle is done. The guide points out the villa area, then drops the act and demands a guide fee. Tenma asks how much, calm as ever, so Fumiya starts turning a simple fee into a robbery. Fumiya shouts for 1,000 points, then gets rough when the victim pushes back. He pins the boy down, claims the delay costs extra, and raises the bill to 5,000 points. When Fumiya threatens to take everything the victim has, Tenma finally reads the whole scam. He asks if they are extortionists, and the outcasts stop pretending this was ever a real guide job. Fumiya sneers that Tenma should blame himself for being careless, then orders him to hand over the points or regret it. Tenma's face hardens, and this guy is officially done being polite. Tenma warns them that no matter what happens next, they do not get to complain. The trapped victim watches him step in, and the outcasts realize their easy target just talked back. Ishitora Sano, the other South Continent outcast, charges in first and brags that he would never lose to North Continent trash. He fires off his B-rank lightning punch, but Tenma takes it without moving. Ichitora freezes because Tenma does not even budge. Tenma answers once, fast and clean, and Ichitora's face takes the hit before his confidence can catch up. Tenma notices Ichitora is still fast enough to blur past his eyes, so he stops trying to track him normally. Our boy decides to end the speed problem with one blow and strengthens his right arm. Tenma drives in with the enhanced arm, but Ichitora's body changes too. Tenma recognizes the trick at once. Ichitora can alter his own body, the same kind of power as an order breaker. So Tenma enhances both arms and calls Ichitora's bluff. He dares him to handle it, and the duel shifts from cheap extortion to order breaker against order breaker. Itadora Sano throws both enhanced arms at Tenma and tries to bury him in speed. Tenma reads the rush, stays calm, and cuts him down with two words, too slow. Ichitora brags that his boosted arms sit near 300 attack and defense, so Tenma should not even be able to push him back. But the stronger Ichitora talks, the worse his face looks when Tenma keeps pressing him anyway. Ichitora grabs Tenma in one hand and finally demands to know what he is fighting. Tenma tears free, rises back into range, and Ichitora spits out the answer himself. Tenma from the North Continent. Then the broken critical crystal warns Tenma that his next hit will land as a guaranteed critical. Tenma stops the punch mid-flow because if it connects now, that 100% critical strike takes effect. Tenma looks at the extortionists he just spared and gives them one order: get lost. They run, calling him a monster, while the other candidates realize the South Continent's 5th and 6th ranked fighters just got folded in public. At Apex Camp's entrance test venue, the loudspeaker announces the next trial, and Tenma remembers Choa's warning that half the candidates fail here. After that little warm-up outside, the real camp finally opens its mouth. In the crowd, Tenma suddenly reaches towards Saya from above, and she flinches at the abrupt greeting. When she answers, she scolds that he is still paranoid, making it clear his reflexes are still on edge. A classmate tells Saya not to look so gloomy, because if Iberia, the 6th place, is only injured, rest can fix that. Then he adds the part Tenma would rather hide. Ever since the attack, Tenma keeps spacing out during training because he is worried about her. Tenma hears that and locks back in. He tells himself he will get stronger here with everything he has. But Saya calls him weak and tells him to shut up because the entrance test is starting. The test administrator cuts through the crowd and orders silence. He explains that Apex Camp hides almost everything about every candidate, and every old rank or win gets wiped at the door. Rebo, an examinee stepping into the camp for the first time here, checks the system and finds every useful detail sealed. Level, gift, skills, status, all private. Around Tenma, nobody gets to coast on reputation now. The administrator opens the entrance test and sends the candidates in one by one. Tenma and Saya step into the venue with the rest, and even Saya has to admit the place is way bigger than she expected. Inside the venue, Kagen, a South Continent trainee from the Imaichi family, spots Tenma and snaps at him for insulting his side earlier. Tenma only stares back and answers with a flat, confused, huh? From above, 3 overseers watch the test, turning the clash into something the authorities can judge. Nearby, a masked antagonist looms over a white-haired man and a blonde woman as the white-haired man coldly demands, "Care to explain?" The trainee says Kagan's 2 underlings tried to extort points and got beaten for it, so if anything, Kagan should be thanking him. Kagan answers by blasting him aside and threatening to rip off his arm if he gets touched again. Kagan refuses to explain himself and turns that anger straight onto Tenma. Tenma steps in for his friend and warns Kagan that if he lays one finger on him again, Tenma will kill him. Kagan and Tenma crash crash into each other before the test even starts. Saya cuts through it, reminding Kagan that fighting here means a penalty, then points him toward the camp training ground after the test. Kagan accepts the duel, so the fight gets pushed off the floor for now. The other trainees are rattled, but the administrator just rides the heat and tells everyone to keep that energy until the test ends. Then the administrator drops the real rule: there are no rules. The candidates have to enter 4 rooms in any order, use any equipment or skill they want, and raise their stats as high as possible, with scores over 80 earning bonus points. Some trainees regret coming in empty-handed, but one of them steadies the group and says their training will carry them. They choose the defense room first because they have to clear every room anyway. In the defense test room, Rebo leans on his metal element and says defense is his specialty. Then the defense examiner walks in, level 40 and earth element, and launches the first attack before Rebo can turn that confidence into a score. The defense examiner starts explaining the job, and Rebo finds himself in a burning village where the threat is no practice dummy. An armored skeleton with a flaming crown is revealed as Vera. That makes the defense test a real survival check, not just blocking random hits. Rebo steps in as the North Continent trainee who trusts his metal element most. With Saya watching, he tells everyone to relax because some rocks will not break him. The examiner lets him prepare, so Rebo goes all in before the first shot even starts. Rebo activates metallization, a C-rank skill that boosts his defense by 50%, and his defense jumps to 258. He plants himself and tells the examiner to bring it on, so the first difficulty comes straight for him. Difficulty 1 hits Rebo, and he barely moves. Feeling safe behind metallization, he complains to the examiner that it is boring and asks to skip straight to level 2. The next attack comes as a massive energy beam, and Rebo has to catch its golden core instead of simply shrugging it off. Holding the orb with a dark emblem inside shows the test has shifted from a harmless hit to something he must actively stop. Rebo says he has no problem, but the room has already changed its mood. A trainee reads the attack and explains that these are magic rocks made from the examiner's own power, so their hardness and damage are far beyond normal stone. Rebo feels his arms going numb under metallization, but pride keeps him in the test. When the examiner asks if he will continue, Rebo pushes for difficulty 3 and tells himself one more level should be fine. Difficulty 3 is not just a little bigger, and Rebo charges anyway, because backing down now would make his earlier confidence look ugly. The hit overwhelms him, blasts him off his stance, and drops him hard enough to spit blood. Saya and the others rush their eyes to Rebo as the room goes quiet. Rebo forces out that he is okay, while someone near him calls the attack at least 3 times stronger than difficulty 2. The examiner looks at Rebo still conscious after a direct hit and says that alone should earn a good score. Rebo survives the 3rd stage, but now every trainee knows the defense room can end a run before the other tests even start. The examiner calls Tenma up next for the North Continent, and Saya watches him step in after Rebo's rough finish. The examiner warns him that every jump in difficulty makes the magic rock several times stronger, then asks where he wants to start. Tenma quietly checks the gap in numbers before answering. Rebo barely survived with defense under 300, but Tenma's black water wall already puts him at 627, so our boy does not look scared for long. When the examiner assumes Tenma froze up and offers to start him at difficulty 1, Tenma cuts in and chooses difficulty 5. Saya snaps that even Rebo's metallization topped out at difficulty 3, and nearby trainees start whispering about the national first-place student from the North Continent. The trainees stare at Tenma and refuse to believe this quiet kid is the same Tenma everyone heard about. The examiner readies the test anyway, while the room remembers what happens to failed challengers here: injured, unconscious, and kicked out before the other tests even begin. Difficulty 5 brings out rocks so huge the trainees gasp that one hit would finish Tenma instantly. The examiner allows Tenma to use skills first, but Tenma says he has none to use, so this is fine. The watchers think Tenma is mocking them, so the examiner launches the difficulty 5 magic rocks without holding back. Tenma stands still under the hit, the rocks break apart around him, and the shock sends other trainees stumbling instead. One injured trainee blurts that Tenma is dead, and the staff nearly treat it like an emergency call. The medical squad is already being contacted when Tenma walks out without a scratch. Premature paperwork, very awkward. The examiner has tested hundreds of trainees over 3 years, and even he stops cold at Tenma taking difficulty 5 with no visible skill. He declares Tenma a top-class monster among past participants, so the crowd backs away as if the quiet level 0 just changed shape in front of them. Tenma notices everyone avoiding him and genuinely wonders what he did wrong, while Saya beams at him for surviving cleanly. He tries to calm Rebo by saying no awakened is perfect and Rebo must have something he can beat him at. But when asked for an example, Tenma thinks, never mind. Now it is Saya's turn, and the official warns her to be careful before she steps into the same defense test. Saya answers that he does not need to worry, and Tenma's clean run leaves the whole room watching her next move. At Apex Camp's entrance tests, Tenma has already made the level 0 label look shaky, so now the camp checks whether his friends can survive beside him. The official lets Saya use her skills, and she answers the danger with her B-rank flow shift water wall. Saya chooses difficulty 3 on purpose, so the test throws real force at her instead of a warm-up. She does not try to overpower it. She slips with the current and bends the attack away. The instructor watches Saya redirect the rock's impact and calls it smart. He says adaptable battle sense is exactly what a savior needs, so Saya clears the defense test with the room taking her seriously. Tenma praises her, and Saya instantly melts over it, thinking his approval feels way too good. The next name gets called, but Tenma's group is already looking for the next venue. Inside the facility now, Tenma leads them toward the attack power test venue next door. When they arrive, dozens of awakeners are already gathered, so their group has reached the next exam, along with the second group. At the attack power test venue, the instructor explains that everyone gets graded by how hard they can hit. Then he shuts down the easy question fast. Their target is not him, but is B-rank Shikigami, the training dummy. A blonde examinee asks what happens if they destroy Tenma, and the instructor says even a level 50 awakened might fail. Tenma scores every hit it receives, so the test is simple. Hit it hard enough to stay in Apex Camp. To set the scale, the instructor punches Tenma himself. Tenma calmly scores it at 50 points, and the instructor explains that a perfect 100 is only theoretical, even for level-up brats facing a level 40s examiner. The first East Continent examinee steps up, sure he can turn the instructor's casual 50 into a clean 100. Tenma watches him hesitate at Tenma's harmless look, but the examiner warns that Shikigami users over level 40 do not build weak targets. The examinee apologizes to Tenma in his head because he still needs to stay in Apex Camp, then swings with a skill-enhanced punch. Tenma answers by blasting him back and snapping for him to return to the dirt. Tenma is not here for sympathy. The examinee survives the counter and checks the result, only to choke on 37 points after using a skill. The instructor tells him to stop whining and calls the next candidate. More candidates throw themselves at Tenma, but the scores stay ugly. The board coughs up 28, 49, then 77 points, and the waiting line starts understanding why that harmless face is a trap. Next up is Gakue from the North Continent, and he sneers at the earlier scores as pathetic. But once he reads Tenma's defense for himself, Gakue tightens up and admits the Shikigami is much tougher than it looks. Gakue still trusts his raw power, so he pours everything into one attack. Tenma takes it, and Gakue only reaches 91 points. Good enough to impress people, but not enough to break the test. Then the 100 Hammer user steps forward, already measuring himself against Tenma, the preliminary first-place scorer. He checks his unique weapon, sees that attack boost, and decides Tenma's power is probably only around his own. The fighter using 100 Hammer faces Tenma and actually feels bad for hitting something that looks so harmless. Then he buries that guilt and swings hard, trying to secure his place in Apex Camp. His full strike tears into Tenma and keeps grinding until the whole test area erupts. For 1 second, everyone thinks the Shikigami has finally met someone it cannot shrug off. Then the witnesses realize the black-haired trainee tore Tenma's body apart with his bare hands. They freeze because this is supposed to be a trainee test, not proof that one applicant can rip the target apart by himself. Tenma looks at the wrecked Shikigami and calmly asks why it is still alive. When he asks for his score, Tenma squeaks out the only number the system can give him, 100 points. The crowd loses it, even for a level 50 standard. The official cuts through the noise and says the scary part is not the 9-point gap from 91 to 100. The official explains that Tenma only gets 100 because the scoring system stops there. His casual hit already passes the full power attacks everyone else was sweating over. The masked instructor says he's at Tenma, so only power above level 50 could hit a perfect score. Then he pauses on Tenma because this kid may already be past the line the test was built to measure. Tenma notices the instructor getting mad over the destroyed Shikigami and tries to slip away. Our boy picks a very brave time to become invisible. The test shuts down for 10 minutes, and the instructor still cannot stop praising Tenma's defense and power. Seiya, watching him act proud, calls him out with the simple question of why he is enjoying this so much. Because the attack test needs repairs, Seiya tells Tenma to take another test first. They agree to meet at the plaza after everything is done, so Tenma heads for the magic power test next. Tenma agrees to meet Seiya at the plaza once their tests are done, so he heads straight for the magic power venue. The next exam is simple on paper. Pour mana into a crystal, get scored, move on. At the magic power test venue, the examiner is a level 42 crafter who built the tool himself. He points everyone to a rare gear crystal and explains that the more mana it takes from them, the higher their score climbs. One candidate worries that dumping all his mana here will ruin his other tests, but the examiner shuts that fear down. The crystal can absorb their mana and give it back, so the test begins with no set order. A volunteer steps up first, eager to show off, and the examiner lets him begin. The candidate pours in everything he has, shouting for his magic power to explode, but the crystal simply takes it and stays steady. The examiner calms everyone and admits he left out one important detail. This crystal once held the full mana of a level 40 awakened, so the first candidate's big moment barely scares the equipment. Tenma stands in a burning city with a red weapon, a sharp glimpse that gives way to the examiner's demonstration. Back at the test, even strong awakeners struggle to fill the crystal, and the examiner starts returning their mana one by one. The examiner leans in and tells one candidate that mana gives away a person's nature. After reading the crystal, he calls that candidate surprisingly pure-hearted, and the room suddenly gets a lot quieter around the test table. Tenma watches the mana drain and decides he would rather redo the defense test than empty himself right now. Since his agility test already burned through his reserves, the kid sits back and notices the crowd's courage vanish fast. The examiner calls for challenger number 2, and Akagami Shion, North Continent's rank 2 trainee, ends up stepping forward while he is still only half raising his hand. An older observer recognizes him and notes that North's top ranks gathering here makes this test worth watching. The examiner asks if Akagami Shion is ready, and Shion places his hand on the crystal without backing down. His mana surges hard enough to overwhelm the room, and everyone has to admit the second challenger is not here to play small. The South contestant sees Akagami Shion's score and immediately starts running his mouth. He says North's rank 2 looks so weak that even he could have chased rank 1, then tells Shion to move aside so the south side can show off. Akagami Shion answers by drawing his sword instead of arguing. The moment it comes out, the stored mana inside it floods into him, and the room feels his power jump several times over. One observer catches the trick fast. Shion's sword is not just a weapon, it is a mana tank, and once he draws it, that stored power pours straight into his body. Shion pushes the crystal to about 80%, and the examiner admits that score would have taken first place for the last 5 years. And then Shion cuts through the weird staring and says, "I'm a guy." Several hearts take real damage. The examiner sends Shion's mana back, but even he looks worn out after handling that much at once. Once the crystal settles, he calls the next challenger forward and asks for an introduction. Tenma steps up and gives his name as Tenma from the North Continent. The onlookers recognize him as the prelims rank 1, but they stare at his empty hands and decide he does not look anything like Hanyukana, North's rank 1 powerhouse. Tenma knows his base mana is only 350, barely enough to half fill the crystal, but our boy has mana detection running, and every mana user within 1200 meters boosts his mana by 10%. Tenma counts the examiner too, then the whole room of awakeners. As long as they stay near him, every one of them becomes fuel for his mana pool. The system starts tagging enemy units one after another, and Tenma's mana keeps climbing. He pours it in bare-handed, while the crowd realizes even Hanyukana needed a karma tool for this test. The crystal races toward full capacity, but Tenma does not stop just because everyone else gets nervous. By the time it shines full, the test has already stopped looking normal. Tenma notices the crystal still has room, so he keeps feeding it mana until the vessel hits its limit. The examiner tries to stop him, but the crystal cracks first, then blows apart under the overload. The crystal finally cracks during the mana infusion, then the blast rolls outward and throws the room into alarm. The measuring vessel is no longer handling the test, it has failed under the overload. Inside the test hall, the examiner remembers the last person who ever broke a mana vessel. 10 years ago, T-Wajin, the tournament rookie, did it, and now Tenma has dragged that same impossible record back into the room. The examiner says there is a spare, but Tenma's name is already sitting beside a legend. The examiner worries Tenma has emptied himself before the remaining tests, but our boy calmly says he still has magic power left. The examiner checks him and freezes, because even after that flood of mana, a trace still remains. When the examiner checks him more closely, Tenma's magic does not fade. It swirls, condenses, and activates between them. A glowing blue face and circuit-like mana patterns appear, turning a simple power check into proof that something unusual is still inside him. Tenma knows using magic detection in a packed test hall gives him a huge edge, but skills are allowed, so he takes the win and moves on. Only the agility test remains now. At the next test area, Tenma lands hard with his boots active and catches up with Saya. She asks if he already cleared the magic power test, and he says he is heading for agility now, while Ribo, the defense struggler, looks crushed over his lower attack test score. Riharu snaps when he hears Tenma and Saya talking about his score, red-eyed and wounded enough to bark back that he can hear them. The kid is stuck watching his excellent evaluation slip away, so he can only pray his total does not drop under 60. Saya tries to pull Riharu and Ribo back up, reminding them they still have one test left. Riharu cannot let it go because Tenma already survived a difficulty 5 rock and smashed the Shikigami in one hit, so Tenma looks locked for excellent while they may get pushed into a different group. Saya cuts Riharu off before he dumps that fear on Tenma, telling him he slacks in training and cannot blame Tenma for it. Then she shifts the mood herself, tells them to focus on the last test, and Tenma heads out with her toward the next venue. Away from Tenma, Saya fumes at Ribo for saying all that in front of him. She knows Tenma too well, so her real fear is simple. If he thinks the observation group keeps him beside Saya and the others, he might hold back on purpose. A nearby student tries to calm Saya down, saying Tenma's earlier scores are already high enough that even a bad last test should keep him above 80. Saya does not buy it because Tenma is exactly stubborn enough to choose extra training if it keeps the group together. And Tenma, alone now, proves Saya right in the worst possible way. He decides he will keep his final score under 80, because he does not need excellent bonus points if the observation group lets him keep working with Saya and the others. With the last test ahead, Tenma locks onto the cleanest ugly plan. Score as low as possible. In his head, 0 points sounds perfect. Before the test starts, another examinee calls out the guy from the northern continent and tracks Tenma down. Tenma answers like he is ready for round 2, but the challenger twists it into their promised duel and says he can wait until the test ends. Tenma wonders if the guy hit his head during the test, because the challenger is the one who asked for the duel and now acts like he is doing Tenma a favor. This guy brought his own confusion and packed extra. Tenma drops it for now and puts his attention back on the final test. At the agility test venue, the instructor lays out the rules as a cat and mouse game. The instructor is level 40 with the same order breaker job, and every student inside the circle has one job: run for 1 minute without getting touched. The trainees hear that surviving 1 minute gives a perfect score, and some start treating it like free points. And the first mouse gets called Fumiya Futaki. A South Continent outcast steps in under pressure not to disgrace his side. Fumiya Futaki trusts his lightning element and boasts that speed is his strength. The instructor warns him that one touch ends the test, but Fumiya launches forward anyway and tells the instructor not to get run around by a mouse. The instructor hears Fumiya Futaki brag about speed and answers that it depends on the mouse. Fumiya loses him instantly, and before he can fix his stance, the instructor catches him from behind. The instructor pins Fumiya and calls him a noisy mouse with slow reactions. Fumiya hits the ground asking what even happened, and the timer answers for him 0.47 seconds. Next, Kagan, the South Continent trainee from the Imamichi family, enters the circle and dodges before the watchers can even track the instructor. Fumiya tries to claim his warning helped, but another trainee catches the truth. Kagan's body moved before the warning reached him. The instructor presses Kagan harder, and the watchers wonder if he can sense the instructor's position at all. Kagan reads the pressure as tough but still manageable, then cuts off his own stray thoughts and locks in completely. Kagan tells himself there is no time to rest, so he keeps forcing the exchange even as the instructor stays on him. The other trainees stare at the pace and start asking if Kagan is really just a trainee from the South Continent. Tenma watches with Thunder Roar Wave active and reads both sides clearly. Kagan is using an overload state to boost his stats, but his speed starts dropping, and Tenma sees the kid reaching his limit. The instructor spots the slowdown and tells Kagan he has shown his tail. A watcher mutters that Tiwajin would last longer, and Kagan tightens up because one touch ends everything. Cornered, Kagan uses air cannon's recoil to slip away from the instructor's grab. The instructor admits the move is smart, then stops cold because Kagan has dodged into a position with nowhere clean to go. Kagan fires air cannon at full power, using the blast to hold the instructor off and steal a few seconds of recovery. The instructor reads the plan right away and calls it brilliant. The instructor activates Miri 10 and breaks down Kagan's trick while the chase keeps tightening. Even a C-rank skill can turn nasty in the right hands, and Kagan's combat sense earns real respect. But the instructor sees the cost before Kagan can hide it. Kagan has squeezed everything out of his skill, and now the instructor asks the one question he cannot dodge. He is out of stamina, isn't he? Father, the authority running this gauntlet, calls Kagan's last breath of stamina before Kagan can hide it. Tenma reads the same thing from the side. Kagan needs a few seconds to recover, but Father has already boxed him in with nowhere clean to run. Kagan refuses to give Father the easy catch. With one escape route left, he activates C-rank skill, Skywalk, and turns the air under his feet into footholds, sprinting upward to buy the time his body is begging for. Father catches Kagan in midair anyway, and the impact knocks the breath right out of him. Kagan coughs through it, but Father lets him know he nearly made it. 1 minute and 2 seconds survive, and that earns congratulations. The trainees explode for Kagan, calling him the pride of the South Continent. Father praises him as the most outstanding trainee in 9 years, and says Special Class Savior is no longer some far-off dream if he keeps working. Because Kagan just gave everyone a full show, Ichitora Sano, the trapping outcast, steps up next with fresh confidence. He says Kagan's run exposed Father's movement pattern, then warns Tenma not to waste his time. Tenma answers softly that he might disappoint him, and Sano's whole pattern theory dies almost at once. Father doesn't come from where Sano expects, and Sano is out before he can make the South Continent look clever twice. Father cuts Sano down for embarrassing the South Continent itself, then turns to the only North Continent trainee in the room. Tenma steps forward, and the crowd perks up because the national number 1 is finally taking the test. The excitement gets messy fast. Some trainees stare at Tenma and admit he has none of Kagan's obvious pressure, but others remember the destroyed Shikigami and tell them to shut up and watch. Father wants to see the national number 1 who surpassed Taewajin's record, so he asks Tenma to show what he can really do. Tenma decides on 5 seconds and warns him he may still disappoint expectations. Father refuses to take Tenma's modesty seriously and activates his power anyway. That matters because he is forcing Tenma to prove the national number 1 reputation under real pressure, not talk his way out of it. Back at the Apex Camp entrance test, Tenma is still the system's broken level 0 on paper, so he needs power without letting every rival see how much he has stolen. Father praises his speed right away, but Tenma starts retreating instead of pressing in. The clock crawls past 1 second, then 2, and our boy keeps giving ground. The watching officials panic because Tenma is backing himself straight toward the boundary line. Kagan writes Tenma off the second he sees that route, calling him a fool who trapped himself in under 3 seconds. Another trainee notices the stranger part. Tenma uses no skills, no boost, no interference, and still chooses the worst path on purpose. Cornered on his own terms, Tenma finally moves. He triggers Thunder Roar Wave, and Father snaps that the skill comes too late before the counterattack throws Tenma back hard enough to draw blood. Father realizes Tenma dodged the real hit and only tapped his shoulder on the way past. Tenma's own read is colder. He only touched Father to warn him, just in case the instructor missed how close that dodge was. Father stops treating this like a simple test and compares himself to a cat that has caught countless mice. Tenma has annoyed him enough that Father decides this mouse gets the serious version. Father attacks fast enough to finish before Tenma can even process it, and Tenma stands there instead of escaping. 4 seconds pass with the kid still upright, taking the hit because dodging would ruin the weak act. Tenma reads the next movement too, and Father catches that reaction immediately. The sidelines realize the match is already over, but Tenma still refuses the clean dodge. Father grabs Tenma at close range, and the onlookers can't understand why a fighter who can react would let himself get caught. Tenma lets the struggle lock up until the timer hits 5 seconds exactly. Father watches with a serious face, so the exchange lands as something important enough for him to judge closely. His reaction makes clear this is not just movement anymore. The result matters to him. The crowd notices Father's face before anyone says the score. Tenma, still caught in Father's grip, calmly asks him to announce the results and let him go. Tenma runs the numbers in his head and gets exactly what he wanted. 5 seconds should nearly tank his score, so even perfect marks remarks before this can still dump him into the observation group. Father finally gives the verdict, and he does not soften it. Tenma is fast, but Father calls his combat sense and adaptability laughably weak, then says he will never win at that level. Kagan hears that and scoffs, already treating Tenma like a failed rival. The South Continent trainees ask what chance Tenma has, and Kagan says Tenma cannot beat him. Kagan's followers jump in fast, calling him this year's strongest trainee. Kagan shuts down the chatter and warns them to worry about passing, not running their mouths in South Continent's name. Then one trainee brings up the earlier magic test, where the crystal ball broke under a massive amount of magic. When Kagan asks for the name, the trainee says it was Tenma, North Continent's #1. That news gets under the South Continent group right away. They answer by pointing back at Kagan, because to them, their #1 is the only name that should matter here. At the magic power test area, the instructor calls for the next applicant, and Kagan steps forward. He says strength is not decided by words, only ability, so he takes the crystal ball himself. The room locks onto Kagan's silver hair and silver eyes, already expecting a show. The instructor starts explaining the simple rule, but Kagan cuts in because he knows the job: pour magic into the crystal ball. The question running through the test area is simple now: Kagan or Tenma, who has more magic power? Someone says Tenma's magic is rumored to be limitless, and Kagan hears the bar he has to clear. Kagan stays relaxed enough to talk about grabbing a meal after the test. Then he remembers Tenma blew up a crystal ball, so he decides he will do the same. Kagan pours in more power, calm and focused, while the watching trainees stare. The instructor warns him to stop before the crystal gives out too. The crystal explodes anyway. The officials and onlookers panic because this is the second crystal Tenma's shadow has forced them to replace. Kagan's followers celebrate like he has just settled the whole rivalry, even while the instructor stands there stunned. Kagan offers to keep going, saying he still has plenty of magic left. Kagan's side is already celebrating because the crystal ball is built to take power from a level 40 awakener, and Kagan still blew it apart. They call first place guaranteed, but Jin, the godlike existence who saves people, cuts it down cold and says a low-level test win means nothing. Jin only cares about one number now. Tenma lasted 5 seconds in the instructor's agility test. Nearby, Saya, the worried friend, watches hard enough for another trainee to notice, and he says she clearly did not hold herself back on purpose. After the entrance test at training ground #1, the announcement comes down. Every score is being calculated, and the results will hit their record bracelets in 1 minute. The bracelets flash, and the waiting starts hurting everyone at once. One trainee checks his bracelet and barely clears the line with 61 points, so the system drops him into the observation group. Saya gets 62, and when he acts proud anyway, she snaps that he barely passed, not conquered the continent. The trainee still congratulates Saya because she beat him by 1 whole point, and since both of them land in the observation group, he suggests they stick together. Then Tenma checks his own result and panics for the exact opposite reason. Our boy thinks he scored too well and is headed for the excellent student group. Saya and Oishi ask Tenma how many points he scored, and Tenma admits he expects the outcome to be bad. But when his result still points him toward observation, Oishi is stunned enough to ask whether Tenma somehow made the instructor hate him. Saya and the others comfort Tenma by saying the 3 of them can train together again, even if the result feels rough. Tenma admits being with everyone is not so bad, while the score sitting at 80 keeps him from looking too miserable about it. Elsewhere in the gathering area, North Rank 1's side is still measuring itself by the test results. Someone points out a perfect 100 across 4 tests, but the white-haired woman cuts off the bragging and says that score is not why she came. The crowd gathers because the test day is not over yet. The training ground clears out from the earlier chaos, and the instructor steps in after hearing Tenma and Kagan are planning a duel. When someone asks if the duel is even allowed, the instructor welcomes it instead. He says a duel is boring without spectators, so he invites everyone like he is, turning a private grudge into a school event. The announcement goes public. Tonight at 8 p.m., training ground #1 hosts North Continent's Tenma against South Continent's Kagan. Jin and Tenma stand on opposite sides of the noise as the warning lands. Do not miss it. The trainees immediately turn it into a betting war because everyone wants to know which #1 is real. Tenma has spent this whole test trying to stay low, but now his level 0 path points straight at Kagan, the next wall between him and the strength he needs. A dark-haired young man stands before burning buildings with a red glowing weapon, making the threat bigger than a school rivalry. Whatever comes after this duel, the violence has already moved past